Zelda Invades Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 501 Thanos and Hela. Seeing that the matter was resolved, Old Rogers was about to leave, but Bucky stopped him with one hand. Bucky said, "Where are you going?" Old Rogers smiled slightly. "Home, watching baseball games. Although many years have passed, I still want to say that life without being a superhero is really wonderful." Bucky looked left and right and suddenly said pitifully, "Well, can you take me away? I'm homeless." Old Rogers was slightly stunned and nodded. "If you don't think that I'm too boring as an old man, of course I'd like to have another good neighbor." Bucky's face rarely broke into a smile. "That's great." As soon as Old Rogers appeared, it brought another strange change. That is, Bucky's recognition of Old Rogers was far higher than that of young Rogers, because the weathered face of Old Rogers made Bucky feel the movement of time, as if Old Rogers was washed away by time and had been waiting for him. So Old Rogers took Bucky and the other two away. One is old, the other has a broken arm, and they have a tragic feeling of relying on each other for survival. Natasha patted Rogers on the shoulder. "Why are you so depressed?" Rogers looked up with a bitter face. "You are hooking up with your niece. Aren't you depressed, Natasha?" Rogers squatted down and covered his face. "Oh my god. What happened today? I offended Tony," and an older self appeared. At this time, Strange suddenly walked out leisurely from the circle of sparks that appeared in the air. He spoke in a British accent and said lightly, "This is the strange feeling that time brings to people. When I summoned myself in 10 different time periods, I also felt very uncomfortable." Loki was startled. "Can you say hello before you show up?" Strange smiled slightly and said, "But this is my greeting." Thor touched his chin. "You Earthlings can have fun." He was a little absent-minded and suddenly said, "We forgot that we should ask that old man Rogers what happened in the future." Strange said, "Don't worry, he won't tell. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to appear in front of you until now. This is the mystery of time." Just as Strange was explaining with great confidence, suddenly, Old Rogers came running over and shouted, "I forgot to tell you something." "Strange." Natasha hurriedly said, "What about the future?" Old Rogers said, "I won't say much. I just want to tell you that there is a very powerful enemy in the future who wants to destroy the world. You need to unite to defeat him, otherwise the future will be very dark." He smiled slightly. "You can definitely do it. Just ask Link for specific things." "Goodbye again." Banner said, "Powerful enemies. Do we have other enemies besides Ganon?" At this time, Corolla rushed over quickly. She was wearing a capable flight jacket. She shouted, "I received the news from Zelda. Something is going to happen. I'll go over and take a look first." Then she quickly accelerated and disappeared in the sky. Asgard. Hela sat in front of the throne. She hated Link deeply and had been plotting how to defeat Link to avenge her hatred. Fenrir, the big wolf, was trying to please Hela with his tongue out and a silly look on his face, but it had the opposite effect, angering Hela even more, and was thrown out of the royal city by Hela. Hela held Gungnir in her hand and slammed the ground hard, causing the entire royal court to tremble. The undead army knelt down one after another, intimidated by Hela's intimidation. Hela shouted, "Who is spying?" She walked out of the royal court and saw a man standing under the royal court. The man was wearing purple and gold armor and was tall and burly. The undead army was on guard all around, and several people fell beside the man. The man looked at Hela, and his eyes were filled with admiration. "I'm Thanos, from the planet Titan. You are Hela, the goddess of death, right?" Hela's heart trembled. What a strong sense of power. It seems that during the years I was trapped, not only Link, but other strong people have risen. This era really makes people feel happy. She smiled. "Thanos, are you here to submit to me? My place is empty now, and it really needs some minions. You are very worthy." Thanos was not angry. He raised his hand, and Hela immediately noticed the infinity gauntlet in Thanos' hand and the power gem on the glove. Hela smiled contemptuously. "Are you provoking me? Do you think that a power stone can show off in front of me?" Thanos said, "No. I just want to be honest about my origins. I hope you will be my ally, and we will achieve that great goal together. Hela asked, what goal? Thanos said, this universe can no longer bear the burden of too many lives. These lives reproduce meaninglessly, wasting the resources of the entire universe. This end will cause the entire universe to fall into a dead collapse. And my home planet, Titan, was destroyed in the war caused by resource shortages. Hela raised her hand. Go on. Thanos said, I plan to collect the 5 Infinity Stones in the universe and use the power of the Infinity Gauntlet. Kill half of the life in the world, to greatly alleviate the resource problem. You are the goddess of death, and I will bring death. The combination of you and me will put the world back on track. Hela smiled contemptuously. Just you? Can you withstand the power of all the Infinity Stones? Thanos said in a deep voice, of course. Hela's face changed, and she clapped her hands. If you are telling the truth, why bother to join forces with me? Thanos said, because some people will become obstacles on my path. And he happens to be your enemy. His power is too strong. We must join forces to defeat him. Hela was surprised and said, you mean Link? Thanos shouted, yes, it's Link. According to my information, there are people on Earth who possess the Time Stone and the Mind Stone, as well as the Reality Stone in Link's hand. He and his Avengers will become the strongest enemies that hinder my great cause. The two of us join forces, you take revenge, I collect gems, and finally repay you with death. How about it? Hela paused, and finally pride rose in her heart. Join forces? I, the goddess of death, Hela, the daughter of Odin, never join forces with anyone. I will kill my enemies, and do not need your help. Thanos shook his head. In that case, can you lend me your space stone? Hela smiled. You are finally willing to tell me your main purpose? Although I disdain the power of the space stone, this is not something you can borrow just by saying you can. Get out. Thanos smiled. Then I'll take my leave. He lowered his body and jumped up. At this moment, Hela was shocked. He left so abruptly. Oh no, the space gem may have been stolen. He is trying to attract my attention. Chapter 502. What does the water beast want to express? By the time Hela realized what was happening, Ebony Maw had already stolen the space stone. How ridiculous. Hela roared. Since she was liberated, she has been defeated repeatedly. She lost to Link, who was far inferior to her in strength, and then had her treasure stolen by Thanos right under her nose. She certainly didn't care about an Infinity Stone, but compared to the stone itself, her dignity being despised was a bigger problem. What a clever thief. But even if you dodge all the dog noses, you are destined to be hung up and beaten. Hela asked about the unusual smell around her, and looked around the treasure room. Ebony Maw acted quickly, and was not greedy. He took the Infinity Stone and left, so Hela didn't catch him. But he seemed to have taken something away. Black roots sprouted from Hela's feet, and penetrated into the hard stone slab. At this moment, Hela looked like a black octopus monster. This showed that her anger had reached its extreme. Odin had stored some decorations in the treasure room. The fake Infinity Gauntlet was one of them. At this moment, the fake Infinity Gauntlet disappeared, and it seemed that it was also stolen by Ebony Maw. On Earth, Frigga liked the life in Sky City very much. She took her mates, and carried a basket, to pick flowers and fruits all day long. Something strange happened. Because of Frigga's frequent visits, some beautiful flowers and fruit trees began to emerge around the Avengers. When walking in the woods, you can smell the fragrance of rotting wild fruits, and even attract many small animals. Tony's laboratory was broken into by a squirrel, which directly caused Demi to run away. Confused, Tony asked Thor what was going on. Thor said calmly, if the gods visit this place will be protected. So there is a difference between gods and humans. Tony put his hands on his hips. What about Goddess Hylia? Thor quickly covered Tony's mouth and said sincerely, Goddess Hylia is another supreme existence. A higher level god. Tony struggled. Link and Zelda are not as exaggerated as you. Let me go. Go to Link to express his piety to Goddess Hylia. Thor let go of Tony. Link went to repair the water beast. Val Ruta is a little uneasy. It seems that her toe was bitten by a shark on the seabed. Val Ruta always makes strange calls, and the sound is like a whale. This caused trouble, and it caused a lot of waves. Although it did not cause a disaster. but the strange water current carried fish into the sky, and large pieces of sea water formed huge bubbles and flew into the sky. It scared the people on Earth. Link is trying to appease Val Ruta. Tony was stunned. There is such a strange thing. I thought the water beast was just a machine. He was in a low mood recently and didn't pay much attention to the news from the outside world. He was obsessed with harassing Pepper and Amy all day long. On the sea, Mipha and Zelda sat leisurely on a small boat, wearing sunglasses. Mipha shook her fingers, and a column of water continued to surge on the sea surface, drawing a beautiful arc like a dolphin, and falling back into the water. The real dolphins were very happy to play with Mipha's water column. Zelda held a delicate small telescope and looked at the scene above her head. The water beast Val Ruta shook its long nose and kept splashing water. The surrounding sea water gathered like bubbles and floated in the air. The sky was full of bubbles of sea water, and panicked fish were swimming in the bubbles. The huge bubbles accompanied the water beast, forming a magnificent spectacle, but the people on Earth were scared to death, and the ships did not dare to approach. At this moment, Link was in Val Luta's body, trying to find out why Val Luta lost control. Cell carefully counted the empty snack bags on the boat and estimated that they had been waiting for Link for about half an hour. Zelda took a sip of the sour and sweet orange juice and looked at the fishman princess playing with the dolphin through the blurry crystal glass. Could Link be lost in Val Luta's body? Mipha also raised her delicate chin, with natural light red eyeshadow in her eyes, looking at the uneasy Val Luta and said, "He won't get lost. But I can't comfort Val Luta. I don't know if Link can find the reason. Is it because of Ganon?" Zelda felt it carefully, and her sensing power almost covered the earth. Like a super performance monitoring satellite, she checked the distribution of Ganon's curse power on the earth, and finally shook her head. Impossible. So far, the destructive curse power has not formed on the earth. Just when the two princesses were thinking about when Link could come out, suddenly, Val Ruta's long nose was raised up like a whip, and a string of crystal water splashed in the sky. Zelda knocked on the bird beside her, and the bird immediately transformed into a large shield shape to help the two princesses block the rain. But Val Ruta's nose was not only sprayed with water, but also a screaming Link. Link, Peppa, Madonna, Navi, and Yaya flew out screaming. They crashed directly into a big bubble. Peppa puffed up his face and his short limbs swung rapidly. Yaya bumped into a fat sea fish, which scared the sea fish so much that it slapped Yaya out of the bubble with its tail. Bang! Link returned to the boat with the four wet little guys, and he was also angry. Mipha kindly helped Link, and the little ones wiped the water off their heads and asked softly, "Why did you get out?" Nori and Grilly explained for Link. Val Ruta is too fierce. We searched for a long time in his body, but couldn't find what was wrong. So Link decided to enter Val Ruta's brain and knock it to see if it could be restored to normal. As a result, Val Ruta got angry. He sprayed us out. Mipha smiled in confusion. That Val Ruta is not a TV. Knocking on his head is useless. Madonna quickly shook the water off her head and said sullenly, "How do you know if you don't try?" Yaya was burning with fire all over her body, and she cackled angrily. She hates water. She transformed herself and enlarged her body into a giant dragon. Yaya was ready to settle accounts with Val Ruta. Zelda whispered, "Yaya, don't mess around. Come here." Yaya had to reluctantly turn back into a little dragon and shrink back into Link's arms. She knew that if she argued with Zelda, Link would definitely be unhappy. Nori said depressedly, "What is the water beast going to do? Does he want to make all the water in the Pacific Ocean fly up to the sky?" Madonna snatched Mipha's snacks and stuffed them into her mouth. Looking up at the sky, she said vaguely, "Why don't we just ignore the water beast and let him do it? There are so many bubbles in the sky, just like a spherical fish tank, shining brightly. It's pretty good. Let's go back." Zelda looked at the sky in confusion. Could it be that Val Luta is expressing something to us? The suspended water in the sky refracted the sun's rays, reflecting on the sea surface. Very gorgeous. Chapter 503 Crystal Space. Zelda asked Link, "What did the sea look like when you fell?" Link recalled, "On the sea was." His eyes lit up, and the pale golden wings on his back lifted up and flew into the sky. The bubbles in the sky were like glass beads, reflecting a layer of hazy colorful spots on the sea surface, which were bright and dark. Link flew higher and higher, and finally saw something strange. That is, the colorful light on the sea surface actually presents a regular rotating shape, and the spots of light are constantly flowing, dispersing, and gathering. But the center of movement is on a sea surface in the east. The spots of light always gather there by coincidence, and then separate. And in that center, various fish are also rotating around it in a strange way. It seems that there is something there that they are curious about, but dare not approach. Link landed on the boat and told Zelda and others about the matter. Navi was very excited. We found something. Let's go and see. Midona was a little annoyed. I want to go back. It's too sunny here. I feel my skin is going to get tanned. Navi said, you have dark skin. Okay. Midona corrected seriously. It's dark blue skin. Mipha thought, this can't be a coincidence. It must be that Valuta wants to tell us something. Maybe there is a treasure there. Treasure? Midona's eyes lit up again. I'll go. Navi. At this time, Peppa was silent for a long time and suddenly ran to the side of the boat in a hurry, spitting out 3 small fish. Then he lay on the edge of the boat and gasped for breath. He smiled weakly. Ha, ha, you are saved. Mipha wiped the corner of Peppa's mouth. Are you okay? Peppa regained his spirits. Peppa is fine. Zelda smiled and said, then let's go and see. So the boat quickly rushed to the center of the light spots. This boat is just an ordinary wooden boat, and it doesn't even have a propulsion device. Link used the magnetic grabber to control the iron part of the boat and quickly moved forward. As the boat left, the dolphins who had been playing happily with Mipha were not happy and hurriedly followed the water line drawn by the boat. They soon came to the center of the light spots. Yaya rubbed her eyes, because the light from the water droplets in the sky that looked like glass beads gathered here. Her eyes felt a little uncomfortable. Zelda's long ears moved slightly. Did you hear any sound? Link and Mipha shook their heads. Zelda whispered, it's a sound like a baby elephant, and it's getting clearer and clearer. Midona shouted excitedly, treasure. Link stopped the boat at the center of the light spots. The shoulders of everyone were shining with colorful bright spots, causing them to look at other places. There was always a feeling of darkness. The sea surface was rendered by fish that were fluctuating. Midona stuck her head into the sea water to check. She tried to open her eyes from the salty sea water, but she could not see anything except darkness. She raised her head suddenly and said angrily, there's nothing. At this time, Link felt a tremor in the weapon space, and Faye broke free involuntarily and floated beside Link, like a well-behaved maid. Faye said in her ethereal electronic voice, my lord Link, there is a door here. Nori tilted her head. Door? Where is the door here? Faye said, we are at the door. You need a key to open the door. Link thought of something, so he summoned the light scale spear from the weapon space and handed it to Mipha. Mipha nodded, tentatively inserted the spear into the water, and injected her own power into it. Faye whispered, the door is open. A white light cracked on the water surface, just like a crack in the door. Zelda was suddenly stunned, but the white light dispersed, and Nori screamed, if this is the case, we stay up there. Ugh. The white light opened up, forming a circle of light covering, and a large amount of seawater poured into it. Everyone was startled, and the boat carrying everyone fell into the open door on the water. Link pulled up Mipha and Zelda, and wanted to fly up, but he suddenly found that his wings had lost their function. His body fell rapidly, and a large amount of seawater flooded from the top of his head. Tony suddenly received information from Jarvis. Report to Mr. Tony. Princess Zelda's bird signal suddenly disappeared. Tony stood up suddenly. What? Link spit out a mouthful of seawater and stood up. He suddenly found himself in a world made of crystal. Looking up, there were colorful waves above his head. Transparent crystallized grass and trees. Transparent crystallized forests. Transparent crystallized valleys. Link. Hearing Zelda's voice, Link turned his head hurriedly and was suddenly stunned. Zelda helped Mipha up, and the two of them felt confused because of the sudden fall, but their bodies were not injured. But they found a strange change. The bodies of the two girls became transparent and shiny, as if they were crystals. Link said in a lost voice, your bodies. Zelda smiled strangely. Well, it's not just us. Link raised his hands and saw that his hands had also become transparent, and under closer inspection, he could see clear edges and corners. Zelda was confused and said, "We seem to have come to a strange space, and our bodies have been assimilated into this crystal space." Mipha stretched out her slender fingers and gently touched Link's cheek. There was a crisp sound, and she couldn't help but smile. Zelda looked around. Where are the others? Where are Midona and the others? At this time, there was a crackling sound from the ground. Wow 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 wow. Brave man. Hearing the familiar sound, only half of the body of the shiny Peppa was left in the bushes, flying out of the woods, with round crystals flying backwards from the corners of his eyes. There were also a lot of collision sounds behind him. What happened? Link shouted, and Peppa immediately saw him and rushed towards him. Peppa also turned into a crystal state, but a part of his body was missing, as if it was broken. This made Link feel very bad. Their bodies seemed to become hard and brittle in this space. The crystal tree shattered, and several one-eyed men as burly as stone statues rushed out from inside. They shouted loudly, "Catch that strange creature." The tall one-eyed man in the lead hurriedly threw the sledgehammer in his hand and smashed it at Peppa. Link immediately went forward. Zelda also summoned the bow of light, but when she pulled the bow, she found that the bow had no elasticity at all. Link stabbed with a sword, and the Master Sword also turned into crystallization. Colliding with the sledgehammer, Link's body began to crack, starting with the Master Sword. Chapter 504, Plundering the Seven Colors. Link thrust his sword forward, but something surprising happened again. Suddenly, a solid sword energy appeared out of thin air in front of the sword blade. This sword energy was also composed of pale white crystals, like a huge arc-shaped moon, smashing towards the one-eyed crystal man. A long-range energy attack turned into a real projectile? Exclamation mark. Enemy. The one-eyed crystal man was shocked, and his feet were in disarray. He quickly dodged sideways, but his movements were too violent. With a snap, his calf was broken, and a sharp and shiny cross-section appeared. It's over. The one-eyed crystal man was hit by Link's sword energy crystal on the spot, and exploded into pieces along with the sword energy. Link suddenly had a mysterious feeling, as if his body had become more brittle. Peppa cried tenderly, "Brave sir," and ran into Link's arms. Link said anxiously, "Be careful." But he still couldn't stop Peppa's momentum. He heard a tiny cracking sound in his arms, and two cracks appeared on Link's chest. Peppa's crystal head also fell off halfway. Peppa was panicking while holding half of his head. Link was also surprised. He quickly analyzed the situation. He came to a world made of strange crystals. Everyone, including himself, turned into a movable crystal state. Their bodies were hard but brittle. They could not move violently, nor could they withstand excessive impact. He observed the remaining two one-eyed crystal men. These two strange lives were stiff in shape and more like machines than humans. There was a giant eyeball on the upper part of their faces, like a spherical surveillance camera. The two one-eyed men did not attack Link immediately, but rushed to the place where their companion's body was broken into pieces with fiery eyes. And their broken companion, with only half of his shining body left, said weakly, "You can't do this. I have accumulated it with great difficulty." The two one-eyed men smiled at each other. "Let us borrow it first." Opening their hands, a large number of crystal fragments on the ground floated up and pieced together on their bodies. The two one-eyed men abruptly grew 1 meter taller. Their broken companions were so angry that their teeth chattered and creaked. Mipha exclaimed. They became stronger by eating other life crystals at the same time. Link's eyes were filled with a trace of disgust. After all, devouring companions is always unacceptable. Zelda came over and shouted, "Who are you?" Link pointed his sword at the two crystal one-eyed men. The two crystal one-eyed men looked over and shouted, "Hand over the crystal carrots in your hands, and we will let you go." Peppa was stunned. "Carrot?" Then Peppa was angry. "Peppa is not a carrot. Peppa is a living person." The crystal one-eyed man scratched his head and creaked. "This carrot can not only run but also bark. It should be a top-level carrot. Lord Roulette will definitely like it." Peppa shrank in Link's arms and exclaimed, "Lord Brave." Link gently hugged Peppa and raised his sword. The crystal one-eyed man also rushed over fiercely. "Boy, you are so small, you can't beat us." Bang, bang, bang. 30 seconds later, Link was surrounded by crystal fragments. He only broke one finger, and he pinched it with the remaining 4 fingers, and looked at it carefully. The 2 one-eyed men with broken pieces on the ground cried weakly, "What's going on? We can't beat such a small body." Link said coldly, "Tell me, where is this place? Who are you? Otherwise, I will smash you into powder." The one-eyed man was stunned by Link's attack and hurriedly said, "My name is Huangjing. His name is Lanjing, and the one lying is called Lujing. I used to be golden yellow, but now I have become ugly and transparent." This is a light film space, but who are you? Light film space? What kind of place is this? Zelda and Link looked at each other, and then looked at Mipha at the same time. Mipha shook her head blankly, "I don't know either." So Link pressed again. Finally, he forced something out of Huangjing and Lanjing. This light film space is a world that was suddenly opened up by absorbing the essence of light. The light from the outside world gave life and colorful colors to everything in this world made of crystal. The natives such as Huangjing, Aquamarine, and Green Crystal lived here, and they called themselves life crystals. But until one day, for some reason, a huge gear fell from the sky and landed in the center of the space, absorbing the colors in the surrounding crystals. The colors of Green Crystal and Huangjing became lighter and lighter, and they were very panicked. Because once the color in the crystal completely disappeared and became transparent, they would turn into the lifeless crystals around them. In order to survive, they tried to worship the huge gear like worshipping a god. But the color on their bodies kept fading. Finally, they found a temporary solution to the problem. That is to find a sacrifice and offer it to the huge gear. Every time the gear absorbs the sacrifice, it will enter a dormant state for a moment, and the life crystal will have time to reabsorb the light element falling from the sky, so that the body can regain its color. The sacrifices they mentioned are mainly plants that grow by absorbing the light element in the crystal forest. If not, then break off a little from each of the life crystals and offer them to the gears. Zelda asked, "Didn't you see 2 little lives, one spherical light and the other a little girl?" Huangjing nodded and said, "I have seen them. They are very strange. Their bodies are not hard. One is a small little girl with wings that glow, and the other seems to be a girl, but she is all black, like a shadow." Navi and Madonna. Link and Zelda are sure. Navi is a guardian elf, without a physical body, just a ball of light. After coming here, the light becomes materialized, so she becomes a little girl with dragonfly wings. Madonna, she is the princess of the kingdom of shadows. Her body is made of shadows, and she has no body in reality. In this world full of crystals, I'm afraid that her body has also been restored to the state of the kingdom of shadows. Huangjing continued, "The girl who looks like a shadow flew towards the direction of the gear, as if she was possessed, and the little girl with wings and glowing also chased after her." Link frowned, "Take us there. This world must be related to the loss of control of Valruta." He had a feeling that it must be related to the gears in the mouths of these life crystals. Madonna's condition also caused Link to feel uneasy. Chapter 505, Empty. Link and his companions rushed over with Huangjing and his companions. They were very afraid of the gears and refused to get close. But after Link threatened them again, they reluctantly agreed. The bodies of the 3 life crystals were pieced together again. They also saw how powerful Link was and dared not refuse. But in the process, Link discovered something that made him very uneasy. That is, these life crystals can be pieced together again after being broken. But Link and Peppa can't. Even in the previous battle, the crystal sword energy released by Link also absorbed his own color, making the color of Link's surface darker than Zelda and Mipha. The sword energy crystals he released were also taken advantage of by the 3 life crystals. After absorbing Link's sword energy, they finally showed some colors that Link could see. As expected, just like their names, blue, yellow, and green. In other words, Link and his companions could not recover after their bodies were damaged in this light film space. Amethyst was still lying Link's fallen finger and Peppa's body fragments, but Link was furious and smashed them again. No more requests. Besides that, there was no trace of Fang. Link couldn't summon Faye either, because Faye was in a soul state. She was the master sword itself. They passed through the jungle made of crystals, and behind the jungle was the small village, where the life crystals were. This was where Huangjing, Amethyst and their friends lived. They said regretfully, many of our companions have been turned into static crystals by Master Roulette. The village used to be very lively. But what surprised Link was that the other residents in the village were actually small like glass balls. They looked at Link and his friends timidly but noisily. They were so scared that they quickly hid. Zelda asked, why don't their shapes look like yours? Blue Crystal pointed to the huge eyes on his face and said, this is our true form. Our life crystals can transform into other forms. We become humanoid to find sacrifices in the jungle. But they are left with only their true forms, and the crystals they control. He pointed to the top of his head. They are all absorbed by a companion, spread thinly on the plane, absorbing the light falling from the sky to increase the color of the crystal. There is nothing we can do about it. No one wants to be a naked ball jumping around. Yellow Crystal looked around sadly. It used to be colorful and beautiful here, but now there is no color at all. It's too monotonous. Green Crystal looked at Link and the others enviously. You have so many colors on you. If we use you as sacrifices. He let it slip. It was smashed by Link again. Passing by the small village, they continued to move forward and came to the valley. Link called out loudly, but he couldn't find Yaya. And the deeper they went, the more afraid the 3 life crystals became. Woo wow wow. There was an exclamation from the valley. As soon as Link heard it, he knew it was Navi, and his heart tightened, and he immediately ran over. Huangjing hurriedly said, be careful. Your feet will break. When he arrived in the valley, Link immediately saw a huge black gear spinning, about 2 meters in diameter. The gears collided back and forth, chasing a little girl with dragonfly wings, Navi. Zelda suddenly covered her ears, and she felt that the strange sound in her ears became clearer and clearer. Seeing that Navi was about to be crushed by the rotating gear, Link rushed over and took Navi into his arms. He rolled backwards to avoid it. Navi shouted, Link, this black gear actually ate Midona. Link was shocked. Navi continued, after coming to this world, Midona became a shadow-like existence, as if controlled by something, floating uncontrollably, and I couldn't stop her. She approached the black gear, and then was absorbed by the rotating black gear. Link was anxious, be careful. Then he rushed towards the black gear with his sword. The black gear also rushed over horizontally. This huge black gear is not a living thing, nor does it have any vital points. At this moment, Link, who was so fragile, was holding a not so thick master sword, and he felt uncomfortable, no matter how he hit it. As soon as he approached the black gear, Link immediately felt something in his body flying towards the black gear. He soon realized that the color on his body was gradually fading. Mipha jumped over with a spear, and Link quickly shouted, don't get close. He stabbed the black gear with a sword, releasing a large amount of sword energy, forming a solid crystal, pushing the black gear away. But it also caused Link's body to suddenly become more transparent. The life crystals were very scared. Zelda asked, I don't understand. Why will you die if the color on your body disappears? Huangjing explained tremblingly, because the color on our body is the external manifestation of the brilliant element falling from the sky. Because the light is injected into the lifeless crystal stone, we become alive and can think and act. It's not the color that Lord Roulette absorbs, but the light in our body. Zelda asked again, but why does this black gear absorb the light in your body? Amethyst was a little angry. That's right. We need light and need to live. This big gear is a dead thing. What light do we need? Zelda was stunned. She had a question in her mind. What exactly is this black gear? Why did the water beast bring them to this bizarre world? A dead thing. But seeing the black gear attacking Link like a wild bull, it seemed to have self-awareness. Zelda also heard a strange auditory hallucination in her ears. There was a sound of an elephant crying in distress in her ears. Nori floated to Zelda and said, what the hell is this place? Have we been tricked by Valruta? My body has become so strange here. Link was using various methods to attack the black gear. In the light film world, almost everything was crystallized, and the sword energy was solid. The time stop skill could not be used, because the crystal body could not withstand it, and the clone would tear the body apart. Link did not dare to try the remaining skills. He tried to attack several times, but none of them worked. Moreover, the black gear was constantly absorbing Link, causing the color of his body to fade rapidly, almost transparent. Just when Link was at a loss, he heard Madona's voice in his ears. "Link, this can't solve the problem." Link was surprised, and he said in his heart, "How are you now?" Madona's voice was very calm. "Because my body has special properties, it was absorbed by this black gear and turned into pure energy, so I discovered something. The black gear is not a weapon. He has his own consciousness. It seems that he needs to absorb the energy of light to fill the emptiness of himself because of some damage." Chapter 506. Collect all the triangles of wisdom. Possessing its own will. Thinking of the color of the black gear and its strange state, Link's heart trembled. Is this a monster created by the power of Ganon's curse? Madona said clearly, "No. The black gear can absorb me, which means it is also a dark attribute substance. But unlike my dark attribute, this gear was severely damaged, causing its body attributes to reverse and become dark attribute. It is precisely because of this empty state that it constantly devours the light that this light film world depends on for survival." Madona continued, "According to my guess, this black gear is a core part in the body of the water beast." Link's eyes lit up. This is a reasonable explanation. He hurriedly told Navi to everyone through his inner intuition. Mipha said hurriedly, "That's right. This black gear does look like a part inside Valruta's body. It was probably damaged by the cannon impact 100 years ago. So Valruta is anxious and wants us to help him find the lost parts." Zelda was delighted. "In that case, does Mipha have any way to repair this gear?" Peppa sat obediently in Zelda's arms and raised his hand to speak. "The black gear needs light. Do we have to feed it?" Huangjing, Lujing, and Blujing were horrified. "Feed him? How much light is needed?" Mipha smiled in confusion. "Maybe we have to make the black on the gear disappear." These words scared Lujing and the others so much that they broke into pieces on the spot. "No. We have worshipped him for so many years. He has always been so dark." Zelda looked down at her two white hands and said to herself, "Does the black gear need light? I have a lot of light. Maybe I can feed it." So with her hands on her chest, Zelda tried to shine. She and Link often flashed like light bulbs, and she was very familiar with this kind of thing. A blue crystal, green crystal, and yellow crystal opened their eyes wide and looked at Zelda. Zelda's sacred appearance and the calm atmosphere that came naturally gave them an illusion that Zelda was about to soar into the sky and shine forever like a star. But when they came to their senses, Zelda neither glowed nor gave off heat. Nori said helplessly, "It seems that it won't work." Green Crystal tentatively replied, "You can break off your arm and throw it to the Gear Master. Let him absorb it himself." Link's sensitive ears immediately noticed it, and he said angrily, "Absolutely not." Zelda saw that Link was angry because of her, and immediately smiled and shook her head, indicating that she would not do that. Of course, because Link was worried about her, Zelda felt warm in her heart. But they couldn't think of any other way, so they hesitated. Zelda noticed that Mipha was silent and asked Mipha, "What's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell?" Mipha shook her head. "Princess, did you hear a sound in your ear?" Zelda nodded in surprise. "Yes. I did hear the sound of an elephant in my ear. I thought it was an auditory hallucination." Mipha looked at the black gear and said, "This is probably the sound coming from the black gear." She suddenly opened her mouth slightly, with a look of surprise. "This is..." Link was getting impatient at this time, and decided to take the risk of stopping the black gear, and then bombarding it with the Dragon Soul Great Sword. He waved his hand to stop the time, and the black gear was bound by the golden chain, and time stopped. Link summoned the Dragon Soul Great Sword, a red great sword shaped gem. Link was stunned, because he felt the fluctuations of Fang from the great sword. It turned out that Fang was compressed into the Dragon Soul Great Sword after traveling to this world. He fought against the broken crystal of his leg and slashed it, and the sword hit the black gear like a wheel. Snap! The golden chain, and then a white crack appeared on the black gear. Link thrust his sword in, pried it with his sword, and injected sword energy into it. Bang! The black gear broke apart. A stream of black gas came out of it, and gathered on the shoulder, and finally turned into Madona. Madona was a little dizzy. What a strange feeling. Crack. Link's legs and waist cracked due to excessive force. Crack. Half of his calf broke. It turned into a transparent crystal. After the black gear broke, there was actually a smaller red gear inside, rotating rapidly. Link was shocked, and he felt that the speed of the color on his body was fading faster. Langjing and others were shocked. Oh no. They immediately turned transparent and broke into crystals. The bodies of others were also dimming rapidly. Link was in danger and was about to give the red gear another sword. Mipha came over and whispered, "Link, don't, I understand." Link looked back in surprise and saw Mipha walking up. He actually tried to touch the red gear with his hand, and Link immediately grabbed Mipha's little hand. But Mipha smiled softly and broke free. "Okay, leave the rest to me." Link was puzzled. Mipha said softly, "This scarlet gear is indeed a part of Waluta, but not of the body, but of the soul. This is part of Waluta's will." She looked at the red gear with a far-reaching gaze. At the beginning, Waluta was controlled by Disaster Ganon and his power was stolen. I couldn't stop it. In the end, Disaster Ganon killed him, and his blood was spilled in the pool in Waluta's body. Because it is the blood of a hero, my soul full of sadness echoed in the body of the water beast, crying all day long for 100 years. It was not the power of Ganon's curse that impacted Waluta's will, but because of my blood and ghost, ominous blood appeared on the water beast. The blood penetrated into Waluta's body and caused damage to it. The damage was so great that part of his will was reversed to dark attribute. Waluta must have been suffering from self-blame for using its own power to kill me, even though its power was controlled by Ganon. And what is in front of us is actually Waluta's self-blaming will. He absorbed the light not to repair himself, but to cleanse his soul with it. He wanted to cleanse the guilt of killing me, and the blood I left on it. Mipha slowly touched the red gear with her finger. She said absent-mindedly, "Ruta, I never blamed you from the beginning to the end. Don't blame yourself. My death and my blood should not be used to hurt you. We are partners. It was you who accompanied me for 100 years. Isn't it?" The red gear suddenly stopped turning. Red crystal fragments appeared on the surface and poured in front of Mipha. Bang! The gear turned transparent. Bang! The light film world began to collapse. In an instant, the wisdom triangle in Link's sacred triangle was filled. Chapter 507, Mipha's new skill, Quantum Machine is completed. When Link and the others woke up again, they had returned to the top of Waluta. Even the memories of the film world were blurred. The transparent gear that had faded blood slowly rotated and flew into Waluta's central control console and merged into it. A layer of blue waves rippled from the edge of Waluta's body, and then the large bubbles in the sky that looked like glass balls fell one after another, causing a large area of turbulent waves. Link pulled Mipha and Zelda to stand up. Midona rubbed her eyes and said dazedly, "My body has recovered?" Navi nodded repeatedly. She was very happy. "That's right. I have also turned into a light ball again." Midona was puzzled and said, "What's so good about the light ball? It's not as good as the little girl with dragonfly wings in the film world." Navi swung left and right quickly. "This is the best now." "Ah!" Mipha exclaimed. "Waluta has returned to normal." But Zelda was a little worried. "Where are the residents of the film world? I seem to hear the sound of the film world breaking." Link blinked. Just after Mipha took back his blood, he obtained a large number of order certificates, so that the wisdom triangle was fully filled and sublimated in an instant, becoming a unified whole. The order certificate made Link's body state extremely unified. Link clearly felt that his vision, hearing, mental power, and psychic perception were greatly enhanced. Now it was like a severely myopic person wearing glasses, which made Link dizzy for a moment. Hearing Zelda's words, Link's mind moved. Under the greatly enhanced ability of the order certificate, Link opened the god's perspective and captured the element of the world around him with mental power. The light film world had not yet closed, and Link captured the world composed of crystals and light in the void in time. At this moment, the light film world has changed from a transparent and lifeless state to a colorful one, like a kaleidoscope. It can be vaguely seen that the crystal life has also restored its color. This illusory world like a dream was completely closed in a trance. Link blinked and could not see anything. Link held Zelda's hand, and Navi helped Link and said, "The residents of the light film world have also returned to normal." Link told me that he saw all kinds of beautiful colors. Zelda looked at Link's eyes, which were still light golden at this time, and smiled in surprise. "Have you collected all the order triangles?" Link smiled and nodded. Zelda clenched her two small fists cutely. Great. Now there is only one power triangle left. Midona poked Link's cheek hurriedly. Link, come and see Mipha. She is a little abnormal. Link and Zelda shifted their gazes and saw Mipha. Both of them were surprised. Mipha looked at the sky blankly and saw a stream of blood gently swirling around her head and body. Mipha said, "This is the blood I spilled on Valruta 100 years ago. I don't know why this blood has become like this. It's like it has life." Valruta's body vibrated twice. Link and Zelda only felt the vibration, but Mipha tilted her head to listen. This was the water beast communicating with her. Mipha's small vermilion lips opened slightly. "Is that so? I see." Navi asked, "Is the water elephant talking to you?" "What did he say?" Mipha stretched out her two small hands and held them in front of her chest as if holding water. Then the bright red blood flowed into Mipha's palms, gradually deforming into a vermilion circular gear. "Valruta told me that, because my blood has been infiltrating its body for too long, it has undergone a qualitative change. This blood also contains part of the power of the beast in Valruta's body." The gears spun rapidly, quickly amplified, and an elephant cry was heard. Mipha said, "Link, attack this beast gear." Link snapped his fingers, and a small ball of lightning hit the beast gear in front of Mipha. Swish. The ball of lightning was absorbed by the beast gear, and the beast gear was faintly flashing with lightning. Mipha pointed his finger, and the beast gear turned to the other side. Bang! A ball of lightning was shot out. It fell into the water, and the surrounding fish were scared and ran away. Mipha apologized. "Sorry, I didn't notice you." Zelda's eyes lit up. "The beast gear can absorb attack damage?" Mipha shyly said, "Yes." Link's heart moved. This might be what Valruta meant. 100 years ago, Ganon used Valruta's power to kill Mipha. So Valruta will also use her own power to protect Mipha as compensation today. Mipha smiled and said, "Thank you, Valruta." Valruta's body shook twice again, and Mipha listened carefully. "Is that so? There are other uses?" Midona and Navi asked curiously. "What?" "There are new functions. We want to see." Mipha smiled slightly, pointed with her finger, and blood flowed into the sea. Suddenly, a water dragon broke through the waves and flew up to the sky. Then it suddenly exploded, scattering water all over the sea, falling on their hair and shoulders. Because it is a water beast, I was also given the ability to control water element by it. Navi said, "Mipha can control water, and Link can control ice. Link, you try it. Maybe there will be a very powerful combination skill, just like what you see in the game." Navi and Midona urged Link to try, so Link casually waved the power of the ice maker frozen to death. Midona shouted, hugging her shoulders. Because of the explosion of the Mipha water dragon, there were tiny drops of water everywhere. Because Link released the power of the ice maker, the surroundings were suddenly covered with frozen frost, forming a very thick fog. Midona sat on Link's shoulder and couldn't see what Link looked like. Peppa opened her two little hands and shouted, "Wow, I can't see. Such a thick fog. So thick. Haha." The dragon soul sword in Link's hand also began to tremble. "It will be soon." Fangaya flew out angrily. Her dragon whiskers turned white, and she suddenly flew into the sky. With a roar, flames sprayed out, instantly melted the water vapor in the sky. The thick fog disappeared immediately. The sea returned to warmth, and Fangaya landed on Link's head with satisfaction, rubbing his head with his head. The Avengers base has been depressed recently because of the tension between Rogers and Tony. Vision and the others are going to school obediently, and by the way, they are studying what Spider-Man is. Tony sat comfortably in the chair. Pym in front of him was so excited that he could hardly control himself. He looked at Tony in a trance. The quantum machine. Did it succeed? Tony shrugged tiredly. Accept the reality. We did it. Don't be stupid. Chapter 508 Thanos is coming. Avengers assemble. While Pym was cheering for the successful development of the quantum machine, old Rogers was sitting at his desk, recording in an old-fashioned notebook. His family still maintains the style of the 1970s. The only new thing might be Bucky's arm, the Winter Soldier. Because the real world was messed up by Link, who suddenly appeared, old Rogers couldn't help it. He decided to sort out what changes Link made to the world. Draw a vertical line on the notebook. At the top of the left paper, write original world timeline. That is, the normal timeline in the movie without Lincoln Gannon's intrusion. The Battle of New York, Hydra's infiltration of SHIELD, Ultron, Civil War, Thanos, etc. At the top of the right paper, Old Rogers pondered for a while and wrote Link timeline. This represents the timeline he is currently in, that is, the many events that were disturbed by Link's intrusion. Old Rogers sorted out the information. At this moment, there was a bang in the sky. Old Rogers felt his whole body tense up, as if he sensed that some disaster was about to happen. He couldn't help but shudder, and muttered with a long face, Link must have done something wrong again. At the Avengers base, the Avengers gathered together, all curious to see the legendary quantum machine. In addition to the 3 who went to school, and the 3 who went to sea, only Falcon was left. Falcon was sulking, because in the Civil War, which was cleverly strangled in its infancy by Old Rogers, Falcon's abdomen was pierced by light, and he lay on the ground for a long time without anyone paying attention to him. He was angry. Thor asked seriously, Pym, are you sure your wife is hiding in there? A quantum world smaller than a bug? Pym, who had a bad temper, was angered by Thor's bug metaphor and said coldly, a world smaller than your IQ. Loki added, that's really small. Tony rubbed his fists and said lightly, let's start and find your wife's location, if she hasn't starved to death. Pym was frightened by Tony's starved to death and his face was blank. Hope pursed his lips, no, my mother must be alive. When they were about to use Jarvis to calculate, Rogers also felt the same disgust. Jarvis immediately reported, Mr. Tony, in New York City, an unknown powerful life form was detected. The energy intensity of one of them is even on par with Hela. Banner wondered, is it Ganon? Oh no, it should be the end of the world now. Jarvis said, no, it's not the power of the curse. I searched the fluctuations of the power gem and the space gem. Everyone changed color. Loki was very alert. His pupils contracted. It's Thanos. He's here to catch Vision. A school in New York. Vision, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Spider-Man were queuing up for food. Scarlet Witch was unhappy because her brother had just said she had gained weight, and Vision behind her kept comforting Scarlet Witch. Don't worry, I eat as much as you every day, and my weight has not changed. Quicksilver sneered, your body is half vibranium, it must be several hundred kilograms. Scarlet Witch's body suddenly released a large amount of Scarlet power, and Vision, Spider-Man, Quicksilver and other students were blown away by the dark red power, and the cafeteria was in chaos. Everyone looked at the out-of-control Scarlet Witch in horror. Scarlet Witch's eyes were dark red, her skirt was flying, and her body seemed to be radiating, casting a very threatening and oppressive aura. The burst of Scarlet power just now caused the decorative glasses that helped Scarlet Witch to fall off. The other students recognized that it was one of the new Avengers, Scarlet Witch, and they talked about it. Vision hurriedly said, Wanda, are you okay? Spider-Man pulled up Quicksilver, whose head was covered with spaghetti, and Quicksilver helplessly spread his hands and said, sister, you can't do that for a joke. Scarlet Witch was distracted for a moment and quickly raised her head and shouted, there are enemies. Be careful. Bang. The wall suddenly broke, and bricks and stones splashed. The students screamed in fear. Scarlet Witch raised her hand, and the Scarlet power stretched out, grabbing several students who were pressed under the bricks and stones and rescuing them, and throwing them back. Spider-Man quickly stretched out his wrist, to spit out silk and weave a web to catch the students. Half of the school building collapsed, and smoke filled the air. Vision vaguely saw a huge double-edged axe thrown in the smoke. Immediately, the laser above his head shot out and knocked the double-edged axe away. Cluster. There was a crackling sound, and a dark alien holding a spear leaned over and stabbed. It went straight to Vision's abdomen. Vision couldn't dodge in time, and Quicksilver immediately slowed down time. He hurriedly pushed Vision away. Then he grabbed the spaghetti and gravel on his head and stuffed them into the mouth of the attacking alien. Then he turned around and kicked it away. Time returned to normal. The alien rushed forward with a mouth full of slurs, and then kicked Spider-Man. Bang! The alien flew backwards. Quicksilver put his hands on his hips and punched Spider-Man. Happy cooperation. Scarlet Witch said angrily, space people, dare to attack us? Don't you know we are very strong? Spider-Man was excited and took a fighting posture. Space people. Great. This reminds me of GD Knights. Ouch. My tights. Tony's anxious voice came from Vision's headset. Don't fight them. They are dangerous. Run. Vision's face became serious, and at this moment, she felt that her body was controlled by something, and suddenly it was stiff like a nail poking down, inserted into the hard floor, until the chest. Vision. Scarlet Witch screamed. Quicksilver hurriedly said, "Sister, there are enemies." Quicksilver was about to run over to help Scarlet Witch, and quickly turned on the high speed. Bang. As a result, he crashed into an invisible wall. Quicksilver was horrified and said, "This space is locked." The next scene made Quicksilver's heart slow down for a moment. The alien who had been stuffed with spaghetti by him rushed over with a spear, and another female alien who looked like a ghost. Scarlet Witch barely blocked one shot, but was stabbed in the abdomen by another shot, and was nailed to the wall. "Sister, Wanda. What are you doing?" Spider-Man gritted his teeth and rushed over, but a strong alien man ran out of the smoke, holding a double-edged axe like a millstone, and swung Spider-Man away. 4 Avengers with great potential were subdued in an instant. Scarlet Witch fell to the ground stiffly, gasping for breath, and saw a burly figure walking out of the smoke in her peripheral vision. "I really don't want to fight in school. There are only some weak lives here." Thanos, wearing a purple gold full body armor and holding a double-edged sword, walked out of the dust step by step. On his left hand, he wore an infinite gauntlet inlaid with 2 gems. The Black Dwarf, the muscular man who slapped Spider-Man away, came behind Thanos. Ebony Maw floated over slowly. When he controlled Vision, Ebony Maw said, "Haha, the Mind Stone actually turned into life." Thanos' strongest subordinate, General Corvus Glaive, stood up, and beside him was his lover Proxima Midnight. General Corvus Glaive said arrogantly, "Lord Thanos, you are too cautious. The so-called Avengers are just the self-entertainment product of this weak planet. I will take off this Mind Stone for you right now. Don't even think about it." Spider-Man covered his abdomen with one hand, carried a school bag in the other hand, and swung over desperately with a mouthful of blood, landing in front of Vision. He panted and gritted his teeth. "Don't you dare hurt them." Black Dwarf growled in a muffled voice, "Just a boy like you? A weakling who was almost smashed into a meat pie by my axe." Spider-Man wiped the blood and said, "Haha, I wasn't beaten away. It's just that I have to take off my combat suit before the battle. Your injuries are just a drizzle." In fact, his internal organs have been severely impacted by the blow. Forcing the battle now will only seriously increase the burden on his body. The spider suit developed by Tony immediately covered Spider-Man's body, and the dark red fabric covered Peter Parker's pale face. "This is my fighting state. If you have the guts, all of you come on." Thanos looked at Spider-Man with appreciation. "You are very brave. Become my subordinate. I will train you to be the strongest warrior in the world. Otherwise, these vicious subordinates of mine will not let you die too easily." Spider-Man first looked at Vision, who was struggling desperately, and then at Scarlet Witch, who was bleeding all over the ground. He said in a deep voice, "I'm an Avenger." General Corvus Glaive said disdainfully, "Then die." Cluster. He stabbed with a gun, aiming only at Spider-Man's vitals. Black Dwarf also raised his double-bladed axe and rushed over. Vision shouted, "Run." Spider-Man gritted his teeth and roared, "You are all like this. How can I run?" He rushed desperately towards the 2 powerful men of Thanos, ready to die. Even he himself thought he would die, and almost swung his fist with his eyes closed. As a result, he hit nothing. "It's over." Spider-Man thought so. But he heard 2 muffled groans again, opened his eyes, and saw General Corvus Glaive and Black Dwarf crashing into Thanos. Spider-Man was surprised. "Can my fist hit people in the air?" Thanos looked up at the sky. Then he heard a voice that made Spider-Man excited from behind. "Bullshit, Thanos. What's the point of bullying a group of children? You die on Earth." Iron Man landed fully armed, and Black Dwarf rubbed his charred abdomen. This is what Iron Man said. The vibranium shield flew back, and was taken back by Rogers. He faced the bloodthirsty eyes of General Corvus Glaive calmly. Pa, pa, pa. Several bullets were fired secretly. Proxima Midnight dodged quickly, pulled out the spear that was inserted in the abdomen of Scarlet Witch, and retreated quickly. Natasha hurriedly helped Scarlet Witch up. Raw. Hulk jumped down, smashed the ground with one fist, and pulled out Vision. There are also Falcon, Ant-Man, and Loki. Venom, Link, Corolla, Rhodes and others are rushing towards them at a fast speed. Tony pointed at Thanos with extreme anger. No matter who you are, and what you are doing on Earth, I only tell you one thing, you will die miserably. This is what Tony Stark said. Remember, Roger's words were even briefer. Avengers, assemble. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 509 Link vs Thanos. Thanos smiled slightly, looked at Tony and said, Tony Stark, I've heard of your name. Tony said casually, this proves that you are not a country bumpkin. His latest MK series, several arc-shaped devices ejected from the back, gathering energy one after another. Iron Man gathered his hands together and immediately shot a laser at Thanos. Thanos just took a step back, while Black Dwarf took a step forward and swung his axe. Bang! The laser exploded. General Corvus Glaive thrust his spear and shouted, Lord Thanos, these guys are not worthy of you to fight. Thanos said lightly, my men want to show their bravery. How can I stop them? He stepped back and sat on the ruins. Proxima Midnight also rushed over with a spear. Ebony Maw flew high in the sky, opened his arms, and said slowly, I'm sorry, your planet will also become a victim of Thanos' great cause. Black Dwarf shouted and smashed down with a double-bladed axe. Ha! Vision gritted his teeth and changed into his original appearance. His dark golden eyes stared at Proxima Midnight. It was this woman who killed Wanda. It was very difficult to anger Vision. At the same time, the angry Vision was definitely not easy to mess with. When she was about to rush over, Natasha quickly held two sticks and rushed over fiercely. The two sticks pierced Proxima Midnight's fatal point. Proxima Midnight easily dodged and glanced at Natasha with contempt. Ha, a woman. Natasha said coldly, you too. The two women with extremely strong fighting ability started fighting, and it was difficult to separate them, making it difficult for others to get involved. Vision saw that the enemy he had chosen was taken by Natasha first. She didn't dare to fight with her instructor, so she looked at General Corvus Glaive with anger. If it weren't for the two of them attacking together, Wanda wouldn't have been injured in one go. But there was a gust of wind behind her, and a strong blue figure rushed forward with a round shield in hand, knocking General Corvus Glaive away immediately. It was Captain America. The enemy was robbed again. Vision was looking for the enemy in a panic. She wanted to fight. Bang! Hulk found the huge and strong Black Dwarf very tactfully, and the two strong men wrestled passionately, and the scene was very beautiful. Obviously Vision had nothing to do. So Vision looked at Ebony Maw floating in the air. Hey. Ebony Maw smiled contemptuously. Vision said angrily, the decision is yours. She shot out a laser and hit Ebony Maw, who had made her lose face before. Falcon helped Spider-Man, who was panting heavily. Up, how are you? Spider-Man said, it's okay, the pain will be gone after a while. He looked at Thanos who was watching the fight from the mountain. Iron Man landed in front of Thanos. Thanos said calmly, so, you think I'm your opponent? Tony said, of course. Before Tony could say a few cool words, Thanos threw a punch, and the power of the power gem was released, and Iron Man was immediately blown into the sky. Iron Man tried to regain his balance in the air. This brute force is quite interesting. Thanos looked up at Iron Man who was barely stable in the sky. You are very eager to fight, but you will soon know that this resistance is vulnerable. Really? Thanos felt creepy when he heard the cold voice. At the same time, his body seemed to be locked by some gentle force. This premonition of danger made Thanos experience a long-lost sense of crisis. Without saying a word, he immediately opened the space gem and moved to another area in an instant. He looked back hurriedly and saw a blonde boy appeared on the ground, holding a long sword. The long sword was glowing, and the boy was also glowing. Thanos has traveled all over the universe, but he has never seen such a person. He was moved. You are Link? Nori said seriously. Do I need to ask? Big guy, watch out. Thanos was stunned. He suddenly felt a sharp sword energy coming from behind him. Someone behind him? So Thanos used the space gem to dodge again, but the sword energy seemed to be able to travel through time and space, and flew towards him again. Nori called out tenderly, "I have locked you, don't try to run." Thanos said coldly, "Then I won't hide." Bang! Light fragments exploded. Midona screamed, "Oh my god." Thanos actually smashed Link's sword energy with one fist. Looking at Link arrogantly, Thanos said in a deep voice, "The original sin of life is arrogance. Tell me, what is the meaning of your resistance?" Link raised his sword again. Thanos is a guy with a head full of self-righteous noble ideals. There is no point in talking to him. Thanos also swung his double-edged sword, ran 2 steps forward, and chopped down with earth-shattering force. The ground beneath his feet broke apart one after another, and the whole of New York was shaking. So strong. Navi said, "Link, don't take this big knife head on." Link nodded. He saw the power gem on the Infinity Gauntlet glowing. You know, Thanos can chop the vibranium round shield into pieces without the gem. Now with the power gem, there is no life in the world that can resist it, right? A flash of light flashed in Link's hand, and the heliocrystal round shield appeared. He swung it backhandedly. Snap. Perfect shield counter. Thanos instantly felt a terrible force coming from Link's crystal shield. He was shocked and said, "This." The power gem glowed even more vigorously, and Thanos barely offset the huge force that Link rebounded from. Then, behind the crystal shield, a shining master sword stabbed. Link locked his eyes on Thanos. Stop time. Thanos' body was immediately bound by golden chains, and time on his body stopped. Link stabbed Thanos with a sword, and the crystal shield immediately switched to the sword of the ancient hero. Holding the 2 swords, clang 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 clang. His body spun like a spinning top, and the sword slashed Thanos. Bang! The golden chain exploded. Link instantly summoned the Dragon Soul Great Sword, and was about to stab it. When the golden chain exploded, Thanos' body suddenly disappeared. Midona said, "He used the Space Stone." He was not locked by the time stop skill. Link's eyes flashed golden, and he saw Thanos appear behind him on the left, and slashed at him. Bullet time. Link moved away in an instant. He crouched down, and confronted Thanos breathlessly. So strong. Link attacked for a long time, but he didn't hurt Thanos at all. General Corvus Glaive shot away Roger's shield, pointed his spear at Roger's throat, and sneered, "Do you think we will only bring so few people when we invade the Earth?" Thanos' space gem glowed slightly, and a crack appeared in the sky, and the sky darkened. The Chitauri army and Thanos' other minions landed from the crack in the sky. Rogers immediately shouted, "People of New York! Peter, Sam, hurry!" Thanos said to Link, "War and blood are the best rules for life to restrict life." Link's face was gloomy. He clenched the 2 swords in his hands. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 510 The Anger of New Yorkers. Link thrust his sword forward, aiming for Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. He tried to interrupt Thanos' use of the Infinity Stones to open the space rift. Thanos knew exactly what Link wanted to do, so he frequently used the space stones to move around. Link frequently used bullet time, and the 2 of them moved back and forth like phantoms, chasing and dodging. Iron Man said in a deep voice, "Jarvis, help me lock on all the invaders here." Jarvis said, "Mr. Tony, I have locked them for you." Okay. The real battle begins. Iron Man rushed head on into the Chitauri army. Black Dwarf punched Hulk away, and Natasha was also going crazy because of her physical disadvantage. Facing the wave after wave of attacks from Proxima Midnight, her moves had more and more flaws. General Corvus kept attacking Rogers with a gun, and Rogers dodged left and right, fighting with General Corvus barehanded. General Corvus Glaive roared, "We should have destroyed this city several years ago, and you have let the people of this city linger for several years. But you can't escape your fate." Rogers rolled to avoid it, and picked up a broken student chair and threw it. General Corvus Glaive stabbed with a gun, and Rogers grabbed the spear with both hands. The 2 of them were in a stalemate. Rogers gritted his teeth and said, "You can't represent fate." Quicksilver desperately hit the space limit, and his eyes never left his sister lying on the ground. There was a substance in the gun of Dark Knight Proxima that made Scarlet Witch's body suffer a strong suppression. She collapsed on the ground and couldn't even move. Quicksilver punched the empty air with both fists. Although there was nothing in front of him, the space gem created a barrier that trapped Quicksilver tightly. And because the oxygen content in the space continued to decrease, Quicksilver began to breathe heavily. Falcon flew into the air and saw a large number of Chitauri falling on the buildings and streets. Ordinary people are about to be attacked by fierce cosmic people. Not only that, things seemed to be getting worse. Hela approached the Earth quickly. She still had that arrogant indifferent smile on her face. Although she rejected Thanos' invitation, Thanos' theft of her space gem still made Hela think. She knew how strong Link's fighting spirit was. If they fought against Thanos, both of them would surely lose. And Hela could take the opportunity to kill both enemies in one fell swoop. She was waiting for the battle between Link and Thanos to end. Hela. At this time, a low voice came over. There was a little breath of thunder and lightning in the void. Hela turned around and smiled. Thor, you were beaten away by me like a piece of garbage just now, and I don't know how much blood you spit out. You actually have the courage to come to me. Shouldn't you be hiding on the earth in fear now? Thor covered his abdomen, and blood flowed out from between his fingers. There were more than a dozen swords in his body, all caused by Hela just now. When the Avengers were fighting, Thor felt a sense of oppression. He knew that Hela was coming, so he flew to the universe. To avoid the alliance of the two powerful enemies, Thanos and Hela, he dealt with Hela alone. Every warrior has his own mission, and Thor's duty is to organize his sister, the goddess of death. If you want to get close to the earth, you have to get past me, Thor said in a deep voice. His lips were covered with blood. His recovery ability is quite amazing, and he can even withstand the energy impact of the next neutron star. But Hela's power hindered Thor's recovery ability. Hela smiled contemptuously. Just you, a little god who can emit a little spark. She rustled, and almost without any fluctuations in the void, she suddenly came to Thor and pinched Thor's throat with her slender fingers. Then with the other hand, she summoned a long sword, stabbed Thor's shoulder cleanly, pulled it out, and stabbed again. Thor groaned and stared at Hela. 23 sharp swords emerged from the void and stabbed Thor. Haiyan twisted his neck and said with a smile, I'm the god of death. Thor, what kind of god are you? A stray dog. What can you protect? You are a weakling protected by the earth. What qualifications do you have to protect the earth? Hela's fingers gradually tightened. Thor's face turned purple, and he struggled hard. Thor's eyes began to flash with lightning, and in crisis, he entered a fantasy world, full of fog, and he knelt down dejectedly. Thor saw his father Odin. Father, I will meet you soon. I want to protect Asgard and the earth, but I really can't do it. I can't beat Hela. Even if I have Thor's hammer, and the trust you entrusted to me, I can't do it. Odin said calmly, Thor, you are the king of Asgard now, and you are responsible for protecting the 9 realms. You must do it. Father, all I did was fight to the death, and try my best. That's all I can do. No, trying your best to death is far from enough. You must win. But I, your comrades, ministers, younger brother, and mother are behind you. You must win. Even if you are just an egg, you must crash the star Hela at all costs. And you are a star yourself. Then Hela saw a strong light burst out of Thor's eyes. An unprecedentedly powerful lightning blew Hela away. The strong light directly caused the waves on half of the earth to refract bright light, reflected on Thor's tall figure. I'm Thor, the son of Odin. On Earth, the battle between Link and Thanos has reached a fever pitch. The two sides are fighting, and there is a large uninhabited area around them. No one dares to approach. Link's sword is getting more and more fierce, while Thanos always maintains an arrogant attitude. This city will soon be filled with the wailing of the weak. This is the judgment of fate. Link said coldly, in the name of the goddess, fate will punish you. Pa. The two swords collided. Large areas of the ground broke apart, underground pipelines shattered, natural gas leaked, and there were large-scale explosions. The nearby General Corvus Glaive and Rogers were overturned by the airwave at the same time. The two quickly stabilized, and General Corvus Glaive's spear blade quickly stabbed. Rogers, who was barehanded, was repeatedly stabbed by the continuous spear. General Corvus Glaive roared, "You can't protect anything. You can't save anything." At this time, a shield hit. Bang! General Corvus Glaive flew backwards. I saw a tall centenarian standing in front of Rogers. The strange thing was that the old man held a vibranium round shield in each hand. It was the old Rogers. Rogers looked at his old self in surprise. Old Rogers handed his younger self a shield and said in a deep voice, "Come on. People have to learn to protect themselves." Rogers took the shield and hurriedly said, You go and evacuate the people quickly. They can't resist the Chitauri army at all." Old Rogers said calmly, "I say it again. People have to learn to protect themselves." Iron Man continued to kill the Chitauri army with lasers, and suddenly Hawkeye's voice came to his ears. "Humph, it turns out that the Avengers can't do without me. I've only retired for less than 5 minutes." Venom's voice also came. "We are here too." Iron Man hurriedly said, "Just right. You quickly protect civilians. Try to reduce casualties." But soon Hawkeye's somewhat embarrassed voice came. "Well, New Yorkers don't seem to need our protection." The vicious Chitauri roared and rushed towards the civilians on the streets of New York, but it was different from the weak earthlings crying and running away, begging for mercy they expected. The New Yorkers they met were very calm. No one ran away and stared at the Chitauri who were rushing towards them. They all took out pistols and other portable weapons. Those who were not carrying weapons grabbed the iron bars and bricks nearby and rushed towards the Chitauri with roars. Kill these aliens. Assholes, you went out to buy coffee and were attacked by aliens. Kill you. These bastards. The earth is so big, but you have to pick on New York. Can't you attack another city? You have to pick on us. Do you think we are easy to bully? Take my brick." A brick knocked down a Chitauri who was caught off guard, and the furious New Yorkers dispersed this wave of Chitauri. The New Yorkers began to fight back. Chapter 511. The reversal begins. The great counterattack. Hawkeye's eyelids twitched. He was preparing for a big fight. Before he had time to stretch his muscles, the New York citizens, who had inexplicably become violent, picked up their weapons and rushed towards the Chitauri like fearless pirates. The Chitauri were confused by the sudden outbreak of fighting desire of the New York citizens and suffered a great loss. They were forced to fight their way out by the New York citizens. Hawkeye raised his bow and arrow awkwardly, but found that the enemies around him had been eliminated by the New York citizens. Spider-Man was flying in the Steel Forest, and there was war everywhere, and New York citizens and alien invaders were fighting in a group. Listening carefully, the shouts of fighting and killing resounded throughout the city. The whole of New York was in flames. Spider-Man jumped down suddenly, like an eagle, and kicked over two Chitauri with his legs. He swung up again, and rushed into the sky. He screamed, "What happened to the citizens? Are they crazy?" Falcon flapped its wings and flew past, and he was also a little scared. "I don't know." Tony was like a powder box out of control, releasing lasers and artillery fire from all parts of his body. He was having a lot of fun, and didn't know how many alien invaders he had killed. Anyway, his explosive performance had attracted most of the firepower in the sky. Tony heard Jarvis's report in his ear. "Mr. Tony, New York citizens have joined the battle." Tony laughed and said, "Ha. Interesting." Rogers was also confused when he heard the shouts of fighting and killing all over the city. Old Rogers explained, "This is what I said. People must learn to protect themselves." That's right. No other city in the world is as unlucky as New York. With a bang, the Stark industrial base exploded. With a buzz, the city was filled with skeletons and a red moon in the sky. With a snap, Hulk and Abomination fought in the commercial street. With a scratch, a biochemical crisis appeared in New York and the city was cleared. Bang, a big hole opened in the sky. Aliens invaded. Swish, the World Security Council dropped a nuclear bomb on New York. With a bang, ancient giants and magma destroyed a quarter of the city. Endless disasters and battles took place in New York City. The speed of construction is far slower than the speed of demolition by monsters, villains, and Avengers. In the frequent disasters, New Yorkers first panicked, then numb, then irritated, and finally angry. They could be attacked by aliens when they went out to buy coffee or sandwiches. They had enough of such a life. If long-term illness makes a doctor, then after experiencing too many disasters, ordinary people will also become excellent warriors. And Thanos' Chitauri army is facing such a group of warriors. General Grim Reaper was also shocked, and then he roared, "Humph! This city still has some blood. Old man, dare to act as a hero in front of me." You won't be able to die naturally. A shot swept over at an extremely fast speed. Old Rogers said in a deep voice, I'm old, but not useless. Bang. He raised his shield and fought fiercely with General Corvus Glaive. His body was so flexible that he didn't look like a centenarian at all. General Corvus Glaive was shocked as soon as they fought. He shouted, who are you? Old Rogers shouted, it's your uncle. General Corvus Glaive was immediately caught by Old Rogers. He stabbed with his fist covered with age spots and hit General Corvus Glaive's leg. Old Rogers suddenly jumped up and kneed General Corvus Glaive's chin. There was a sound of bone cracking with a crack. Ha. Old Rogers held the round shield with both hands. The sharp edge cut General Corvus Glaive's neck, and blood rushed out. General Corvus Glaive was killed by the centenarian Rogers as soon as he was accomplished, and died with his eyes wide open. Old Rogers turned his head and looked at his younger self with contempt. You can't even deal with this kind of waste. You are too weak. Rogers. Captain America unlocked the achievement, being mocked by himself. When Proxima Midnight saw her lover being killed by the Old Rogers, her eyes immediately turned red, and she began to scream, I'm going to kill you. Natasha lowered her body and swept Proxima Midnight down with a leg and stabbed Proxima Midnight's temples with her short sticks in both hands. Proxima Midnight twitched violently and then stared with her eyes wide open and died, with no light in her pupils. Natasha said coldly, your soul should fly faster. Maybe you can meet the ghost of your rude boyfriend. Vision fought with Ebony Maw and saw that the other side had two powerful enemies killed and immediately shouted, wow. Long live the Avengers, you are so awesome. Ebony Maw's spells immediately attacked Vision violently. You are distracted by fighting with me? Are you questioning my methods, little girl? Quicksilver shouted, hey. Someone come to help me. I want to get out of this damn space. There is almost no oxygen here. He punched the invisible wall with anger, but heard a click. His arm swung in the air, and he almost fell down. Quicksilver was at a loss, and saw that the space boundary around his body was shattered. Strange appeared in front of Quicksilver and said lightly, I'm sorry. Because this is a space boundary formed by the space gem, it is very troublesome for me to dismantle it. Of course, I have experience this time, and I will help you faster next time. Quicksilver said depressedly, I hope there will be no next time. Rogers was humiliated by his old self. Seeing that Vision was in danger, he planned to rush up to help to prove his strength. But he was stopped by the Old Rogers. You don't have magic. You will be killed if you go up. Quicksilver and Strange rushed up quickly. Ebony Maw floated a large number of bricks and stones from the ground and smashed them at Vision like a swarm of bees. Vision fired lasers wildly, but she couldn't destroy all the bricks and stones of such a scale. At this time, Strange appeared in front of her. Strange drew a circle, and the bricks and stones rushed into the circle, and then appeared from another place, and attacked Ebony Maw. Ebony Maw snorted coldly, use my attack against me? Naive. He was about to wave his hands and prepare new magic. Then he heard Quicksilver's sinister voice. It seems that your magic is achieved through gestures? Ebony Maw said subconsciously. Yes, you are. Ebony Maw screamed. He raised his hands in a hurry, only to see that 2 mouse traps were somehow caught on his hands. 10 fingers connected to the heart. Ebony Maw screamed in pain. Ah. Dirty earth weapons. Then he was hit by a large amount of bricks and stones that floated in the air. Strange muttered to himself, you can try it. He is a good boy who loves to learn. Just now, when breaking the space boundary of Thanos, Strange gained a lot of experience in space magic. He gestured with his 2 hands and said gloomily, well, let's call it Space Chaos Blade. Ebony Maw, who was knocked away, had multiple space spark circles on his body, and then quickly dispersed, and then cut Ebony Maw's body into countless pieces. Strange hurriedly covered Vision's eyes. Don't look. Chapter 512. The power of the 4 sacred beasts. Thanos is defeated. Thanos looked at his men being defeated one after another, and the situation was rapidly tilting in his unfavorable direction. His face suddenly darkened. The terrifying aura on his body became even more violent. Link, you are blocking me. Your bravery is nothing compared to your stupidity. Thanos shouted, and the Infinity Gauntlet swung his fist, and purple energy waves rippled out, and an extremely dangerous and powerful impact came out. He was serious. Only a very few people in history can fully exert the power of the Infinity Stones. Link and Midona have used the Reality Stone for a long time, but they still have many puzzles about its power, not to mention using it completely. The Infinity Gauntlet can easily allow a person to reach the limit of life control of the Infinity Stone. Thanos' attack undoubtedly exerted the full power of his Power Stone. The Power Stone, even if it is only in Ronan's hands, can destroy Zelda. Not to mention that it is now controlled by Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. This attack rushed towards Link, and Link was naturally very clear. If he dodges, then the entire Earth will be destroyed by Thanos' unbridled power. So he must resist. The Crystal Hylia shield swung backhandedly. Shield counter. Thanos smiled strangely. He had been roaming the interstellar for so many years, but he had never seen such a wonderful move as Link's shield counter, so he was naturally very concerned. He had predicted Link's reaction long ago. His 3 gems lit up at the same time. The space gem was activated. It blocked the space around Link, creating obstacles for him and destroying the shield counter. Link whispered, "Help me." Midona immediately said, "Of course." Her reality gem was activated, and the ether particles rushed around, hindering the use of the space gem. Use the infinity gems to deal with the infinity gems. Thanos was shocked. He didn't expect that the little girl on Link's shoulder, who looked like a rag doll, could control the reality gems to such an extent that she could even compete with Thanos, who had the Infinity Gauntlet. Humph. Thanos snorted coldly, "You are just that good." The space gem disturbed Link. A crisp sound came from the shield, and his face suddenly changed. No, the shield counter failed. Then just bear it. Link held the Crystal Hylia shield and pressed against the powerful purple light coming from Thanos. The Power Stone can tear the entire Earth apart in an instant. This is the power Link has to deal with. Naveen flew out and shouted, "Everyone come and help." Vision used the power of the Mind Stone on his forehead and immediately shot at Thanos. But it suddenly disappeared in the air. Thanos roared, "This space has been blocked by me. None of you can stop me." Jarvis immediately calculated and reported, "Mr. Tony, Link has no ability to fight against the Power Stone at all." Tony gritted his teeth and shouted at Strange, "Master, hurry up and remove Thanos' space restrictions." Strange shouted, "I'm doing it. It takes time." Natasha looked at Link, who was retreating again and again, and murmured, "He has no time." Thanos looked at Link, who was trying his best to block his attack with the eyes of a judge. He said deeply, using strength to resist the Power Stone, "You are just trying to stop a chariot with your arms." Link kicked out a deep gully under his feet. 1/3 of the body sank backwards and was still retreating. The Crystal Hylia shield could not be destroyed, so Link could survive. But although the shield could not be destroyed, the person behind the shield had to bear a huge amount of impact. If it was before, Link might have been killed on the spot. But now, Link's body has broken through the limit of the Hylia people, which avoided the fate of dying on the spot. But even so, holding on for 3 or 5 seconds has already caused Link's body to be severely damaged. His internal organs are under great pressure, and Link's eyes have turned red. Thanos said coldly, "You want to act as a warrior? Then the prelude of the new era will be opened by the blood of you, the brave. Turn to ashes for me." Thanos increased his strength, and even he himself could not support it. After all, the Infinity Gauntlet is not so easy to use. He began to suffer a little backlash from the Infinity Stones. Just when everyone didn't know what to do, and Link was about to be unable to support it, wisps of golden air began to appear on Link's body. The airflow formed the figure of Zelda behind him. In 4 places on the Earth, the 4 heroes who had been waiting for a long time activated the 4 beasts at the same time. Go. Use your power to help Link. 4 rays of light rushed over. Zelda opened her arms and embraced Link's back. 2 huge wings stretched out from behind her. They were about 200 meters long and so magnificent. It was as if there was a Zelda growing on the wings. The power of the 4 beasts rushed over and injected into Zelda's giant wings and turned into 4 softer light energies. With Zelda's help, they penetrated into Link's body. Red, yellow, cyan, and blue. The power of the 4 beasts and their high-pitched cries resounded in Link's body. Link, who was already exhausted, regained new strength. 4 different lights echoed each other in Link's body and finally formed an extremely soft and colorful light, as if there was a beautiful rainbow in Link's chest. Zelda whispered in Link's ear, "Now." Link nodded, and in an instant the crystal Hylia shield switched to the Master Sword. Faye's voice came vaguely, and there was some surprise in her electronic voice. "My lord Link, this is an extraordinary energy." "Ha!" Link shouted, and the Master Sword swung out with the power of Thanos' power gem. A magnificent rainbow sword light flew out, pressed over, confronting Thanos' power. Thanos was shocked and angry. "You? This kind of power? Who are you?" He also ignored the backlash of the Infinity Gauntlet and directly used all the power of the power gem. The power of the space gem was also quickly opened to full. Because of the powerful force that Link burst out at this time, Thanos had the idea of fear in his heart for the first time. But the singing of the goddess Hylia was heard in the sky. The minions and Chitauri brought by Thanos lost their fighting spirit in this deep singing and stood blankly. The colorful light waves on the sky spread down. Link's rainbow sword energy released a large amount of energy, flying out like a meteor, and even more like a firefly, under the control of goddess Hylia, piercing through the Chitauri army. Bang! Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet exploded. He flew backwards dejectedly. The Power Stone and the Space Stone flew away. Chapter 513, Time and Space Reversal. With the help of the power of the 4 sacred beasts, Link reversed the situation in an instant and defeated Thanos. Thanos' huge body flew backwards like a cooked shrimp, and the purple gold armor on his body broke and scattered like leaves. A colorful sword energy left a mark on Thanos' chest. This strange sword light was not sharp enough to directly cut Thanos in two. It was such a calm and gentle power that even with such a strong and terrifying strength, no one present felt any fear from the colorful sword light. The colorful sword mark was left on Thanos' chest. He felt a warm power all over his body, which made him particularly tired, and at the same time particularly frightened and terrified. He hit the back of his head heavily on the ground, smashing a big hole in the already broken land. But Thanos had lost all his perception, and could not feel pain. He just lay on the ground in horror and muttered, God is punishing me. I was wrong." Then the last bit of light in his eyes faded. Thanos did not leave any scars on his body, but he died in great pain and regret. Link himself was shocked by the power that had just erupted, and stood there in a daze. The Master Sword was dimly covered with a layer of colorful light, which was very beautiful. This ethereal light dispelled Link's own murderous aura and sharpness. Everyone looked at it and felt that Link, who was covered in colorful light, was more gentle and peaceful than before. There was even a feeling that Link's strength was weakened. But the fact was just the opposite. Link and Zelda knew how terrible this colorful sword light was. The Power Stone had the most powerful attack in the world, but it was easily suppressed by the colorful sword light. Thanos was such a strong life form, but he was killed by a light stroke of the colorful sword light, but there was no wound left. Link was puzzled and hurried forward to check Thanos' injuries. But just as he stepped on the ground one by one, the devastated land around him began to grow new grass and flowers. Wherever he passed, there was vitality everywhere. All because of Link's existence. Zelda let go of Link, and the giant wings covering the sky slowly folded up. Link carefully examined Thanos' body, and Navi also carefully checked it, and finally exclaimed, Thanos' life was dissolved by the power of the 7-colored sword. The long-lost voice of Goddess Hylia suddenly came to his ears. Congratulations, Link, with the help of the 4 sacred beasts, you have obtained the power of Libra. The power of Libra. Link was puzzled, and Goddess Hylia explained it to him. This is a sacred power, an eternal guardian, that maintains the coexistence of all things in heaven and earth. The power of Libra means that you will be qualified to exercise the authority of God on my behalf. Mortals must not act recklessly, and those who attempt to covet the realm of God will be punished by God. This is the power of Libra. Thanos is arrogant and thinks he is qualified to replace God and punish living beings. So he is vulnerable in front of the power of Libra. The power of Libra is the power that points directly to the origin of life. This is the power of God. You and Zelda have already been able to touch it. I hope you can properly use this power that transcends everything and put the world back on track. Then the voice of the goddess Hylia disappeared. Link was a little absent-minded, which reminded him of what Loki said to Thanos, before he died in the original time and space. You can never become a god. Thanos' body, after a gust of wind blew, turned into ashes. Link hurriedly stepped back 2 steps and covered his mouth and nose. Avoid inhaling Thanos' ashes into his body. If Link hadn't intervened, half of the life in the universe would have turned to ashes. Zelda came up, took Link's hand and said, "You've really done a lot. I believe the world will remember your efforts and dedication." Woo woo woo. The 4 sacred beasts raised their heads and screamed towards the sky, resounding throughout the world. Victory. The citizens of New York cheered as they saw the enemy collapse. The whole of New York was reverberating with joyful shouts. Rogers clenched his fists hard. "We won." Vision cheered. "Great." Spider-Man rolled from the air to the ground, holding his stomach and rolling around. "Oh, it hurts so much. The battle is finally over." Scarlet Witch said weakly, "Who of you can come and see my injuries? Will I die? I feel like I've lost a lot of blood." Vision and Tony flew over. Tony stretched out his hand to scan Scarlet Witch's wound and said, "It's okay. I'll use fillers to stop the bleeding first. Go back and use nanotechnology to repair your wound in a few seconds." Haha. Hulk was still fighting fiercely with Black Dwarf. The fight between these 2 strong men was very interesting, with every punch hitting the flesh. The viewing value was second only to Tony's air battle and Link's battle with Thanos. The 2 strong men fought very hard. Black Dwarf roared, "Green fat man. We will crush the earth." Hulk taunted for the first time, "Idiot. You are the only one left." Ha. Black Dwarf realized that the atmosphere was not right and looked around. It turned out that his companions and boss were all dead. He was the only one left on the battlefield. Where are my comrades? Ha. Hulk took advantage of Black Dwarf's inattention and punched Black Dwarf away. Black Dwarf roared, "Even if I'm alone, I will." A laser shot from the sky. Black Dwarf was halfway through his flight and someone abruptly adjusted his navigation route and he fell to the ground. He was groaning and trying to stand up, and then he heard a tender ha and saw a round little thing standing on his chest in the smoke. Pepper. Enemy. Fight. Pepper was wearing a small Iron Man suit, fully armed, with only 2 small holes on the faceplate. He jumped onto Black Dwarf's face, clenched his 2 small fists, and used a large number of weapons that Tony had carefully developed for him to fire. Black Dwarf screamed in pain. Hulk shouted in dissatisfaction, "Enemy. Mine." He was very unhappy. He beat Black Dwarf half to death, but Pepper came to grab the head. Link looked down at the battlefield. He saw a ruin, but everyone was smiling at him, except Pepper who was focused on bullying others, and the very annoyed Hulk. Zelda smiled and said, "The battle is over." Link nodded, "Yes. Thanos is dead, and the plot of the Marvel Universe has finally ended. Except for the 2 demons Ganon and the end of the world, there are no more enemies." Link felt a little sad. Midona shook her shoulders, "Not necessarily. At this moment." Pym ignored the earth-shaking battle outside and was still concentrating on tinkering with the quantum machine with his daughter. But just as he was adjusting, in another time and space, a group of exhausted people who survived the disaster were conducting a time travel experiment, trying to make up for this bleak ending. Then a coincidence happened. Chapter 514 Visitors from the Avengers 4 plot. According to the old Rogers' previous distinction, the 2 different timelines he experienced were divided into the original universe timeline and the Link universe timeline. The Link universe timeline was disturbed. Link almost prevented all disasters in the Marvel universe, except for Odin who died of natural causes. Even the biggest crisis in history, Thanos. When Thanos showed up, he was defeated by Link. Compared with the bleak original universe timeline, the Link universe timeline is simply too peaceful and smooth. Pym excitedly adjusted the quantum machine. In the original universe timeline, half of the life in the universe has been killed by Thanos, and the disaster has passed for a full 5 years. The original Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Ant-Man, Rhodes, Nebula, Thor, and Rocket, who were suffering from pain, had already put on retro-styled time travel clothes and stood in a circle on the time machine. Dr. Hulk was adjusting it seriously, and then the time machine started. Everyone seemed excited. The original Natasha smiled and jumped, and Thor was a little worried, which made his belly even bigger. Dr. Hulk said solemnly, "I'll wait for you." Natasha smiled and said, "See you later." With a flash of light, the Avengers traveled through time and space, and their bodies were included in the illusory time tunnel. At this simultaneous, Pym accidentally made a mistake in a parameter. He cursed and hurriedly adjusted it, but this still caused some strange fluctuations in the space of the Avengers base. This fluctuation directly affected the Avengers who were traveling through. The original Captain America and others felt that the tunnel began to be unstable, and his body twisted. The original Tony changed color and said, "Damn it. The space-time tunnel was disturbed by unknown fluctuations." The original Nebula hurriedly said, "What should I do?" She turned around and saw that the original Avengers were absorbed by a vortex and disappeared. The vortex was swallowing the original Nebula. The original Nebula risked firing a shot in the tunnel, generating a single force, and narrowly escaped the obstruction of the vortex. Pym complained to himself, "I'm so old that I can make such a low-level mistake." Hope hurriedly said, "Dad, the quantum machine seems to be on fire." Pym shot his head. "Don't. Wife." Bang. A flash of light. The original Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Ant-Man, Rocket Raccoon, War Machine, and Thor fell in front of the quantum machine. It was like a courier package being treated roughly. Hope exclaimed, "Avengers? Aren't you fighting aliens in downtown New York?" Pym hurriedly covered his daughter's mouth and pointed at the TV with his chin. The TV was showing Link, Tony, Rogers and others standing on the ruins. Pym took Hope 2 steps back and whispered, "They may be disguised enemies from outer space." Hope swallowed in horror. The original Avengers stood up. Hope whispered to her father, "That's right. They are indeed fake enemies. Look. They are older than the real ones, and Natasha's apostrophe hair is all white." Pym said, "And Thor, look. It's impossible for that fitness handsome guy to become a fat man in less than a minute. What are these fake aliens doing here? Helping Thanos to commit atrocities?" Pym and Hope both learned about the Skrulls from Corolla. The Skrulls are aliens who can change into other people's appearances. So the first generation father and daughter naturally misunderstood the original Avengers who accidentally traveled to the wrong time and space. The original Tony stood up shakily, "Not bad. I didn't travel to another dimension." The original Rogers was a little annoyed. "Does this mean that the mission failed? Where is this place?" The original Natasha said dully, "We are still at the Avengers base." The original Ant-Man saw Hope and Pym, his face full of shock and joy, and rushed over with ecstasy, opening his arms to hug his lover Hope. Hope. Bang. Hope kicked the original Ant-Man away without thinking. Ant-Man was bent like a lobster due to the sharp high heels, and looked at Hope in confusion. "What are you doing?" The original Rocket raised his cannon, and looked at Hope and Pym unfriendly. "Hey. What do you want to do?" The original Ant-Man hurriedly stopped him. "Rocket, don't do it. She is my girlfriend and her dad, not an enemy." Hope and Ant-Man in this time and space have not officially made their relationship public, and Hope immediately said angrily, "Who is your girlfriend?" The original Ant-Man looked embarrassed and puzzled. The original Natasha said, "Your girlfriend and Dr. Pym are still alive. Does this mean that we have traveled back to the past?" The original Tony subconsciously shouted, "Friday." Jarvis replied calmly, "Mr. Tony, Friday no longer exists." The original Tony and Rod were surprised and said, "It's Jarvis. We really traveled back to the past." The original Rogers hurriedly shouted, "Wait. When the Avengers base was established, Jarvis had already ceased to exist." The original Natasha glanced around. "This is indeed the Avengers base, but it's so confusing." At this moment, Frigga brought many palace maids back from the forest after picking wild fruits and medicinal herbs. As soon as she entered the door, Frigga smiled slightly. "Have you returned from the battle?" Sif and the others are clamoring to go to the battle. It seems that there is no work for them. The original Thor lost his voice and said, "Mother." He ran over with a thump, his big belly swinging. The original Thor looked at Frigga in surprise. "Mother, how come you are in the Avengers base?" Frigga opened her eyes wide and looked at the original Thor carefully. Asgard was seized by Hela, and the people of Asgard and I accepted the invitation of Princess Zelda to live in the Sky King city." The original Thor was confused. "Hela? Didn't Hela die in Ragnarok? What's going on?" Frigga looked at the original Thor's big belly in shock. Can I ask you a question first?" Thor, did you eat Mr. Tony's test product by mistake? I saw that your stomach was fine before you went out. And your eyes. Jarvis was very confused because he received the existence of two Tonys, and the system began to malfunction, and then there was a click. This super AI actually crashed. While the original Avengers were confused, Hope whispered to his watch, "Venom is coming to the Avengers base, requesting support." The original Rogers noticed the hostility of Pym and Hope, and said, "Don't panic. I'm from the future." And Man hurriedly said, "That's right. It's urgent. A guy named Thanos killed half of the world's lives. In the future, you will all die." Pym said coldly, "Thanos? The guy who was killed by Link's sword? Original Avengers. Link. Who?" Chapter 515 Captain America divided into 3 parts. Tony received Hope's message, and the smile on his face disappeared. "Everyone. The Avengers base has been occupied by a group of Skrulls disguised as us. Let's go back quickly." Everyone was shocked, and Rogers wondered, "Someone imitated our appearance and invaded the Avengers base?" Tony said seriously, "Yes, things are very bad. Let's go back quickly. Damn. I have to call Pepper, otherwise it would be too bad if she rashly got intimate with my imposter." Old Rogers looked at Link, and both of them seemed to feel something. "Want to know why Captain Marvel Corolla didn't participate in the battle? The fact is funny, because this girl overslept." Tony hurriedly contacted Corolla, and Corolla woke up from the bed and learned that she had missed a crucial battle. Corolla said apologetically, "I'm sorry, I can't help you." Tony said seriously, "Let's not talk about that for now. You are in the base, right? Now there is a group of pretenders imitating our Avengers in the base, suspected to be your old acquaintances, the Skrulls. Go out and protect Pym, Hope and Thor's mother. We will be back soon." Carolyn narrowed her eyes. "Leave it to me." She hurried out of the house and saw the original Avengers downstairs. Carola flew up and landed in front of Pym and Hope, staring at the original Avengers coldly. "Fakes, show your true faces," the original Avengers exclaimed. Carola. Pym saw the arrival of the strongest Avenger except Link and knew that his safety was guaranteed. He immediately became arrogant and pointed at the original Tony's nose and cursed, "Who are you, little thieves? Dare to pretend to be an Avenger?" The original Avengers were shocked by Carola's appearance. Before traveling through time and space, the original Tony and the original Rogers had already formulated a set of countermeasures for time travel. The original Tony immediately said frankly, "I know this will confuse you, but we are from the future. In a few years, a terrifying enemy, Thanos, will come to Earth, collect all 6 Infinity Stones, and finally kill half of the inhabitants of the universe. We are the survivors of that battle. In order to save everything, we built a time machine and traveled back to the past to save you." After the original Tony finished speaking, the original Avengers were all in a heavy mood. But Hope snorted, "What a joke. Didn't I just say that Thanos was killed by Link a long time ago?" The original Tony was also a little impatient. "So, who is Link? We have never heard of this name." Pym said sarcastically, "Huh, you don't even know this basic information, and you're pretending to be Tony. Link is Tony's best friend." The original Tony was shocked. "How come I don't know?" Pym snorted coldly and pointed at the original Tony's chest. "How good is the relationship between Tony and Link? The reactor element in his chest is named after Link. You dare to say you are Tony Stark?" Original Tony. Frigga said, "Yes, Thor. Link also helped us Asgard defeat Hela." Original Thor. Corolla stepped forward and said, "You'd better show your original form, otherwise don't blame me for being rude." Just when the atmosphere began to become tense, Link arrived with the Avengers. Rogers saw the original Rogers and frowned. "What a disgusting feeling." The old Rogers looked at Rogers coldly. "I think you are the same." Rogers. The original Tony stared at Vision. "How did you become a woman?" Vision said innocently, "Because I'm a woman." The original Rogers said, "How could Wanda's boyfriend be a girl?" The injured Scarlet Witch was held by Vision and looked at the original Avengers weakly. Suddenly remembered the illusion she had created before and immediately shouted, "You are the people in my illusion." The original Hawkeye said sullenly, "Illusion? Since I'm in the illusion, why is my pain so real?" Things became more and more confusing, and the old Rogers stood up. He completely understood what was going on, although the situation was something he never expected. Under the hard explanation of the old Rogers, everyone's doubts were finally resolved. To put it simply, you, the original Avengers, live in a world where Link and Zelda don't exist. As for our world, Link's appearance has led to a lot of changes. Vision has become a woman, Tony's friend Ethan, Quicksilver, Loki, Thor's mother, Yondu, and Hela are all alive. The Civil War has not broken out. Thanos was killed by Link just as he appeared. Thanos' plan didn't work at all. Everything is so perfect that it's unreal. After the old Rogers explained with great effort, he asked, "Do you understand?" Strange looked around at everyone with pride. "No one knows time better than me. This problem is not difficult for me." The original Avengers looked at Link in a daze. They have experienced too many tragic things, and too many people have died. And the cause of all these tragedies is actually the absence of this elf-like boy Link! Exclamation mark. Tony was unwilling to accept it either. He cursed and glared at the original Avengers. "What? Oh, only Link is missing. You didn't save New York. Quicksilver died. Rhodes was paralyzed. The Avengers split. Asgard exploded. And Thor's mother was killed. Thor, you are still blind in one eye. The hammer exploded. In the end, half of the world's people died because of a snap of the purple fat man's fingers." Tony put his hands on his hips and scolded the original Avengers. "So, what are you doing?" Natasha touched Tony and whispered, "Don't say any more. They are us. Aren't we also over-reliant on Link? It seems that without Link, we are like this." Pym said happily, "So, I can still find my wife. Good things, good things." He smiled and patted Tony's shoulder. "I wronged your father. It turns out that the little thief is you." Pym glared at Hope again. "So, in the future you and Scott." Ant-Man stood on tiptoe, a handsome man and a beautiful woman. Pym stared at his future son-in-law with murderous eyes. Natasha shook her head at the original Natasha. "Your hair looks so ugly. How could I become so sloppy?" The original Natasha smiled, and her smile was full of stories. Quicksilver was very dissatisfied. He questioned the original Avengers. "Are you kidding me? I was shot to death. I'm so fast. How can a bullet hit me?" Conspiracy. It must be a conspiracy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 516, Saving Another World. Zelda said, "So, your plan is to collect all the Infinity Stones again, travel back to your original world, and save lives that were turned to ashes by Thanos' snap of his fingers, right?" The original Avengers were confused by the parallel world of Link's universe timeline, and even felt a little self-pitying, thinking that the fate they suffered was too cruel. Hearing what Zelda said, old Rogers cheered up a little and said, "That's right." Quicksilver clapped his hands and said, "That's a coincidence. We can lend you the Infinity Stones here." Midona's hands flicked open, revealing the Power Stone and the Space Stone, one purple and one blue, shining and beautiful. I'm afraid only Midona would hold them in her hands so confidently. "And my Reality Stone, I will lend it to you, but you must change it to me, and you are not allowed to cheat, otherwise I will be angry." Vision looked at the Mind Stone on his head with his eyes and said, I feel that if I take off the Mind Stone, I will die." The original Tony sighed deeply. The vision of our world died just like that. Tony glanced at Vision and said to himself, in another world, although we are the same person, I will not allow you to let Vision do anything dangerous. Boss Stark. Vision was very moved. Strange said calmly, "In fact, I don't want to lend the Time Stone either, because we have to resist the unknown dangers of the unknown world." He smiled at Zelda, "But this sacred Princess Zelda has subdued Dormammu. In the other dimension, it is basically peaceful. I'm willing to lend my Time Stone." Strange suddenly thought of a question and asked, "By the way, in your world without Link, how did you defeat Dormammu?" The original Avengers shook their heads. They didn't know much about this matter. But old Roger seemed to know something, so he said, "I heard that Doctor Strange seems to have annoyed Dormammu." "Strange? Annoyed? Me?" Quicksilver laughed heartlessly. Yes, Strange is really annoying. Strange turned back and threatened Quicksilver. Second man, are you provoking me? I don't mind putting you back into the time and space cage. Quicksilver ran away in a flash, clapping his hands in a very arrogant manner. Natasha said, then, except for Vision's Infinity Stone, the only thing left is a Soul Stone. Old Rogers couldn't help but say, Soul Stone, I'm afraid we can't provide you with it. Why? Old Rogers said, because the Soul Stone is guarded by the Red Skull. What? Question mark? Rogers on both sides were shocked. This scene is so weird. One Rogers scared the other two Rogers. The old Rogers continued, yes, it's Red Spider. He is not dead, and he ran to the planet, where the Soul Stone is hidden in the universe. Moreover, the method to obtain the Soul Stone is also very cruel. He paused, and said in the vicissitudes of an old man's tone, if you want to get the Soul Stone, you must push your loved one off the cliff as a sacrifice. The original Rocket immediately slammed his fists and shouted, that's right. No wonder Thanos wants to kill Gamora. Which disgusting guy designed this? The original Hawkeye asked numbly, who will get it, and who will sacrifice? The original Hawkeye's originally happy and beautiful family is gone. He thought he had no more loved ones to sacrifice. Hawkeye patted the original Hawkeye's shoulder with regret. I can't stand it. The self in another world is too miserable. Old Roger's eyes stayed on Link for a while, and he complained in his heart, Link must know the truth, but he just won't say it, pretending to be an outsider. So old Rogers had to explain. When old Roger's eyes shifted from Link's face to the original Hawkeye's face, the original Hawkeye smiled tiredly in confusion. Why are you looking at me? I'm alone. Barton, you sacrificed Natasha. So everyone's eyes were focused on the two Natashas. The reactions of the two Natashas were also completely opposite. Natasha stared at Hawkeye. It seems that one of my future deaths will be caused by you pushing me off the cliff and killing me. But the tone was more like a joke. The two Hawkeyes said at the same time, impossible. I would rather kill myself than hurt you. They looked at each other, and at the same time they admired themselves. Barton, I'm really a good man who values love and friendship. But the original Natasha smiled and said, Barton, it's not your fault. I must have jumped off the cliff after I learned the truth. I'm actually your beloved, which really touched me. The two Hawkeyes were moved, but also a little frightened. Old Rogers continued to add, you and Barton are each other's beloved, so you both competed to die. In the end, you won. The two Hawkeyes and the two Natashas were stunned again, except for Zelda and Link. The other Avengers were shocked by the struggle of the companions who competed to die. In the words of the old Rogers, the original Hawkeye and the original Natasha shed tears, and they didn't look like two emotionless killers at all. The two hugged each other and cried silently. They have a sincere emotion beyond love. Hawkeye also felt something special. He smiled at Natasha and said, fate is so kind to the people in our timeline. Natasha nodded, smiled at Link and Zelda and said, it's all thanks to you. Link, can I hug you? Link shook his head decisively. Zelda was a little confused. The original Tony shrugged and said, it's worth it to be able to successfully obtain the 4 Infinity Stones. We will think of other ways. Maybe we can also snap our fingers to obtain the 4 Infinity Stones. Tolerance is allowed. Link said at this time, I have 2 ways to obtain the Soul Stones without losing my companions. Tony snapped his fingers and said, by the way, Link, didn't you die once before and resurrected? Mipha can help you revive. So Zelda can push you off the cliff. The original Avengers focused their eyes on Link. Link is their most reliable partner in another world. But they are strangers after all, dying for them. Midona smiled bitterly and said, let's forget about resurrecting Link. Death is no joke. It will be a disaster if he can't be resurrected. And it's still the same whether Link died or not last time. Zelda also said flatly, I can't possibly kill Link. And I can't do it, can I? Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 517 Tony and Roger's Love. The last chapter actually wrote Red Skull's Starscream. Navi also said straightforwardly, Link won't die, even if he jumps off the cliff. Tony spread his hands and said, it seems that Link, you have a unique way. Tell us. He had a smile on his face, but, in the future, I will marry Pepper and have a super cute daughter. It seems that my life is the most perfect. but in the future you will die. Old Rogers forced himself not to spoil the plot. Scarlet Witch has also seen the plot of the original universe timeline and knows Tony's ending. She said weakly, but in the future you. Old Rogers hurriedly covered Scarlet Witch's mouth. You have a good rest. Link and Midona smiled knowingly and told everyone their way of undead companions obtaining soul gems. Rogers, Tony, and their original versions all exclaimed at the same time, will this really work? Link blinked his big eyes. He was looking forward to it. It's possible. Rogers covered his head. This kind of thing. Strange opened the space tunnel, and Rogers and Tony walked in at the same time. After passing through, they arrived at the planet where the soul gem was. The others were waiting for their results. When only Tony and Rogers were left around, Tony's face darkened. I really don't want to be alone with you. Rogers sighed deeply. Tony, I'm sorry about what happened before. After the matter is done, we should have a good talk. Tony said. Rogers smiled and said, I heard from my old self that there will basically be no major events in the future. We can finally return to normal life. Tony said. Rogers wanted to say something else. Tony hurriedly said, do you want to set up 3 flags in a row? So the two came to the edge of the cliff in silence. The Red Skull floated in front of them like a ghost, dropped his tattered hood, revealing his red face like a ghost. He looked at Rogers with a little surprise. It's you. After so many years, you haven't changed at all. Rogers also said with a bad face, you haven't changed either. You always look like this. The Red Skull smiled strangely. Haha, you actually came here. I'm afraid you covet the soul stone on this planet. Rogers said coldly, of course. The Red Skull said, it's been too long since our affairs happened, and I'm not in the mood to pursue those with you. As the current keeper of the soul stone, I will kindly tell you how to get the soul stone. The Red Skull looked at Rogers with a pitiful look. You need to throw your loved one off the cliff as a sacrifice. Tony and Rogers looked at each other. The Red Skull said angrily, Rogers, even if you kill me, you can't get the soul stone. Rogers' face twitched, and he said 3 words, I love you. The Red Skull was shocked, and his dry jaw snapped and fell off because of excessive opening. No. Link's method of obtaining soul stone from undead companions 1. Sacrificing a loved one may just be a one-sided trick of the Red Skull. Maybe, just throw someone randomly, and you can get the soul stone. So just throw the Red Skull off the cliff, and give it a try. When he heard that it was to deal with an enemy, Rogers volunteered. But he soon regretted this decision. Because, to be on the safe side, Link asked Rogers to say to the Red Skull sincerely, I love you, and then throw the Red Skull down. Maybe he could trick the Red Skull. So Rogers' awkward I love you scared the Red Skull directly. Before he could react, he was tied up tightly by Rogers and thrown off the cliff. Rogers and Tony hurried to the cliff and listened attentively. Bang! The soul gem did not appear. Tony said angrily, it must be that your I love you was too perfunctory just now. That's why you failed to deceive the soul gem. Can you take your work more seriously? Your previous Long Live Hydra was perfect. Rogers said awkwardly. Long Live Hydra was not said by me. It was the old me. Then it's you. Rogers said impatiently. Link, the first plan doesn't work. It's time for the second plan. You act quickly. Tony was a little nervous, but Rogers started to act. Don't talk nonsense. Hand over your beloved. Tony hurriedly took 2 steps back and almost fell into the cliff to sacrifice himself. He was very hesitant and heartbroken. This is too cruel. Rogers rubbed his head. Please, hurry up. Let your beloved die. People who don't know will definitely be surprised to hear Rogers in different words. Tony took out his beloved with a heartache, the newly developed MK51, unfinished version. Tony developed a new propulsion system based on an outer spacecraft, which combines all his wisdom and efforts, and is a perfect product that combines Earth and alien technology. Tony has high hopes for the MK51, and initially even thought that this mecha could even defeat Link. When Link used the 7-color sword, Tony gave up this idea. He loves this new Iron Man. This will be a huge loss worth remembering in human history. This battlesuit is different from other battlesuits. I like it very much. Tony said aggrievedly. His voice was a little sobbing. Rogers helplessly put his hands on his waist. Are you going to throw it away? If not, I will help you throw it. Tony turned his head and couldn't bear to watch and threw the Mk-51 core off the cliff. Rogers frowned and said, I guess it failed this time. After all, it's just a combat equipment, not a real person, not to mention a beloved BIU. An orange gem flew up from the foggy cliff and fell into Tony's hand. Rogers was shocked. Oh my god. It actually worked? He scratched his head and looked at Tony, who was looking down the cliff with some apology. It seems that you really love that Mark suit. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support the original work. Chapter 518, Thor is being beaten. The others were waiting at the Avengers base. Because Link and Midona's two methods were too much like a joke, no one believed they could succeed. Tony and Rogers went there just to give it a try. The two Natashas were in the same position, hugging their arms and tilting their heads, waiting for Tony and Rogers to return. The two Black Widows were very unhappy. If Rogers and Tony followed Link's strange method and easily got the Soul Stone, it would not mean that they died in vain. Strange suddenly said, they are requesting to return. He reopened the spark circle and Tony and Rogers came out. Midona asked excitedly, who succeeded? Rogers shook his head. Tony spread his hands with a gloomy face, and an orange glowing gem lay on the pads of his fingers. It really worked. Everyone was shocked. Midona and Link happily high-fived each other, and Zelda smiled. The two Natashas were furious. Our death is not worth as much as an Iron Man suit. Old Rogers laughed and comforted the two Black Widows. You are not dead. But the two Natashas were still indignant. Stupid infinity gems. Tony handed the gems to the original Tony, covered his face and said, oh, my suit. He felt so sorry for that suit. The only one who could sympathize with Tony was Pepper. Pepper ran over to hug Tony's calf and said tenderly, don't cry, don't cry, you can definitely make better. Pepper believes in you. Tony squatted down and hugged Pepper, and he was so strong that he almost squeezed Pepper flat. Pepper still understands me. You are a bunch of indifferent people. Rogers said to the original Avengers, the 5 Infinity Stones are all in your hands. You can go back. The original Avengers sincerely thanked Link and others. Compared with your timeline, our world has too many tragedies. We will try our best to make up for some. Pym said, I searched for the time anomaly parameters when you traveled through. Now the anomaly parameters have been adjusted back. You should be able to return to your world. Link also prepared to go and travel to the original world of the Avengers 4 plotline. He is responsible for taking back the 5 gems and has to deal with Thanos again. Vision bit his finger and thought for a long time and suddenly said, I'll go too. The original Tony asked, Vision, I believe that, whether you are a man or a woman, you know me very well. We will definitely return the gems. Vision said, no, I suddenly thought of a way to help you. The original Avengers were puzzled. Vision explained with a smile, haven't you already made an Infinity Gauntlet? Aren't you still short of a Mind Stone? Although I can't give you my Mind Stone, if the Infinity Gauntlet is given to me to snap my fingers, plus my power, wouldn't it be enough to have 6 gems? Rocket opened his mouth wide. That's right. The original Avengers looked at each other in surprise and smiled. Old Rogers was stunned for a long time. This is also a way. You can really try it. Original Tony thought. Besides, Vision's body is made of vibranium, which is hard enough. It shouldn't be like Thanos, who was half crippled after a snap of his fingers. Scarlet Witch exclaimed, half of the body is crippled. Vision, you'd better not go. Vision said seriously, I think I have a responsibility to go. I want to revive you in another world. Scarlet Witch blushed. When they were about to travel back to the original world, suddenly, thunder rumbled in the sky. Frigga suddenly remembered something and asked with a smile, by the way, where is my son? Loki said, yes. Frigga said, I mean my eldest son. The original Thor said, I'm here. Frigga continued to correct, it is my eldest son in this world. The Avengers fell into awkward silence. The original Avengers were also curious. The original Thor said, yes, where is I in this world? Rogers pointed to the sky with a guilty look on his face. Thor should still be fighting with his sister Hela. We forgot about him. Frigga. The original Avengers. Because of the successful defeat of Thanos' army, victory and the subsequent original Avengers suddenly visited. Link and the others forgot about Thor. Natasha coughed. That is to say, Thor is still being beaten by Hela. Loki gloated. Interesting. The original Thor picked up the thunder axe and said in a deep voice, I'll go to help him. Navi also said, Link has to go too. Tony said helplessly, we are so sorry for Thor. Everyone who can fly should run to support Thor. Hela didn't expect that she actually bullied Thor to the point that Thor's strength increased greatly. The power of the thunder god completely broke out. Thor's domineering side even made Hela feel frightened. Hela was very frightened. Then she continued to hold Thor down and beat him. Thor's nose and face were swollen, and he said indignantly, I have awakened all my powers. How come I can't beat you? Hela attacked fiercely. I'm your sister. I'm older than you. Thor said angrily, for the glory of the North god, I'm the son of Odin. Puff. Hela punched Thor with a backhand punch, and Thor's 2 teeth flew brightly in the starry sky. Hela sneered, if I don't die, you will be exhausted. You are not my opponent after all. She was very patient. She knew that Thor was not easy to deal with, so she had worn him out until now. At this time, she could finally start to release her ultimate killer move. Black blades condensed around her, and she was ready to kill Thor. Thor trembled and held Thor's hammer tightly, without any fear in his eyes. Lightning condensed on his body. Go. Hela released a large number of black crystal blades and stabbed wildly. Thor also fought hard with the determination to die, and swung his hammer out. Echo? When Thor was fighting with all his strength, he suddenly heard his own voice coming from his ear. He turned his head blankly, but was surprised to find a fat Thor, holding a rough axe, and rushing to his side, roaring with him to meet Hela. Bang! Hela's fatal blow was destroyed by the 2 Thors in an instant. At this time, Hela finally noticed that the battle on Earth was over. Hela looked again. 2 Thors? One Thor had a bruised face and lost teeth, looking horrible. The other Thor had messy hair, a fat face, and a fat belly. The 2 embarrassed Thors looked at each other. Did my dad forget to tell me something? I have a twin brother who lacks exercise and smells bad. Thor was stunned. Hazer quickly shook his head. I don't know. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 519. 6 Infinity Stones beat Hela. Thor looked confused. Who are you? The original Thor smiled awkwardly. With his current fat appearance, it was very embarrassing to face his past self. The original Thor looked at Thor with nostalgia, and couldn't help feeling a sour feeling in his heart. This is the real me. Full of energy, bright eyes, strong muscles. It's just that the nosebleed and bruises on his face slightly obscured his heroic spirit. No. It should be said that it obscured a large part. Thor was very irritable when he was looked at by his original self. He shouted, who are you? The original Thor said, I'm you in another time and space. Let's not talk so much first. Let's defeat Hela together. Okay. Thor was straightforward and decisive. Defeating Hela was the most important thing. So he and the original Thor stood up, one holding Thor's hammer and the other holding thunder axe, and made the same roar. Hela said coldly, even if help comes, your fate will not change, but her contemptuous look soon disappeared. Boom boom boom. In the universe, there was no dust or clouds nearby, nothing, but lightning was born out of thin air. A huge thunder cloud condensed above the 2 Thors' heads, and finally formed a dark grey vortex, in which lightning snapped brightly. An unprecedented thunderbolt struck fiercely. This is the power of the 2 Thors combined. Hela panicked, and then she was irritated by herself. Hela said angrily, no one can defeat me. She gritted her teeth, and faced the 2 Thors. A huge black crystal sword appeared behind her, like a giant dragon, bombarding the 2 Thors. Bang! The power of the 3 northern gods bombarded together. Even the civilians far away on Earth suddenly felt a brief earthquake. It was as if the Earth shook violently. They looked up at the sky blankly, and saw a white dot flashing above the white sky. In the distant space battlefield, this white dot was a large and violent energy battlefield. The vast power of the Thor and the deep and sharp power of death bombarded each other. The energy of both sides was violently collided, and a large amount of it was transformed into the most basic energy particles. It was as if 2 prehistoric ferocious beasts were tearing each other apart. Hela's face was ferocious. Even if you join forces, don't even think about agreeing to me. I'm the goddess of death. Any life will surrender at my feet. The fierceness of the goddess of death broke out in this unprecedented collision of power. She pressed forward with all her strength and actually overwhelmed the impact of the two Thors. The power of death continued to dissipate the power of thunder, and the black light gradually overwhelmed the incandescent light. The two Thors gritted their teeth and said, "It still doesn't work." But just when Hela was exerting her divine power and gaining the upper hand, in the void of outer space, a bolt of lightning suddenly rose up and rushed from Hela's back. The power was not inferior to the full force of the two Thors. Boom. Hela's body was suddenly pierced by the power of the Thor who attacked by surprise, and she vomited a large mouthful of blood. Because of the injury, her power was weakened. The two Thors took this opportunity to counterattack. Boom. Two thunderbolts overwhelmed the power of death and also draped Hela fiercely. 3 terrible thunderbolts bombarded Hela, and Hela screamed, "Yo. I feel that old woman is going to be roasted by you." Midona's naughty voice came. Hela's body was bombarded by 3 thunderbolts and directly exploded into ashes. The 3 thunderbolts weakened at the same time. Thor looked at the wish in surprise, and a young man with glowing wings approached quickly. The one who could release lightning attacks that were not inferior to Thor was naturally Link. Thor cheered, "Victory. My sister died in my hands. Cheer for the great victory." Nor he complained, "Beating your own sister to death. This is not a victory, right?" The original Thor also said with a heavy face, "Hela cannot be destroyed without destroying the Asgard royal city." In the end, the ashes in the space quickly gathered and finally spliced into the appearance of Hela. She was pale and stared at Link with hatred. The latter was calm. "Where's Thanos?" Midona put her hands on her waist and said proudly, "He has been defeated by my Link. He has turned into ash." Hela looked at Link in shock. "You actually killed Thanos?" Navi also helped Link brag. It wasn't long before a purple alien. Link defeated it in one fell swoop. Except for the big guy Black Dwarf, none of Thanos' subordinates were left alive. All of them died. Hela was deeply shocked. Hela knew very well how powerful Thanos was, and she didn't care about his strength. But to be fair, Hela knew how difficult it would be for her to defeat Thanos. But Link defeated Thanos easily. At this moment, he was still standing in front of her calmly. It seems that defeating Thanos didn't cause much damage to him. He is worthy of being the boy who once defeated me. Hela was shocked. Hela opened her arms. "Humph. Another one. Then all of you come. Thor, Fat Thor, Link. Even if all 3 of you come, I, the goddess of death, will not be afraid." Tony's voice came. "Really? Since you are so confident, how about we siege you, like we did in a game of billiards?" 2 Iron Men, 2 War Machines, Vision, Strange, and Corolla came one after another. They surrounded Hela in the center. Hela's heart tightened when she saw a few more powerful enemies, but she still snorted coldly, "Even if there are a few more small fish, they are just a simple meal for me." The 2 Tonys looked at each other and smiled at each other. One of them held the Soul Stone, the other held the Space Stone, and Corolla held the Power Stone. In addition to Midona's Reality Stone and the Mind Stone on Vision's forehead, all 6 Infinity Stones are here. Tony shouted, "Everyone help me. Let me do an experiment. I want to see whether Hela, who is known as immortal, is more powerful, or the power of the 6 Infinity Stones concentrated together is more powerful." Hela finally trembled and said, "You actually collected all the Infinity Stones." She gritted her teeth and looked around. Even in Hela's endless life, she had never seen such a powerful lineup of 6 Infinity Stones. Link raised his sword, and Navi helped Link shout, "Come on, come on, everyone attack together. Don't show mercy, Hela can't be killed anyway." Hela's face changed when she heard it. The encirclement narrowed, and everyone approached. This was the first time that the goddess of death felt that she was the prey. Hela said angrily, "You, wait for me." Pop. Hela suddenly dispersed into a black smoke and diluted in space. The goddess of death ran away. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 520, Beat Thanos Again. Hela was scared away by the 6 Infinity Stones. When Midona saw the goddess of death turned into ashes, she immediately shouted, "Ah, look. Hela was scared to ashes by us." Hela fled far away, but she still heard this sentence. She was so angry that her teeth itched, and she hated the chattering girl in her heart. But what can she do? You can't just take 6 infinity stones for the sake of dignity. The goddess of death will not die if Asgard is not destroyed. But under the interference of many elemental forces such as reality, mind, soul, space, time, and power, maybe Hela will skip the process of death directly and annihilate directly, falling into complete illusion. By then, she will have no time to regret. In addition to being annoyed, Hela is also afraid. Now the Earth has 6 infinity stones, plus many powerful people headed by Link. This means that Hela's plan to invade the Earth has completely failed. She even needs to formulate a plan to prevent Link and others from counter-attacking Asgard. Return victoriously. Thor asked the original Thor about the other world. Thor was very confused. Why was he so miserable in the other timeline? His father, mother, and brother died, of course. Thor thought that the death of his brother was not a bad thing. He also lost an eye and his hammer was broken. Let's not talk about these. Asgard was blown up, and half of the people of Asgard died. Even because the position of the cut was slightly offset, the other half of his people died. It was so miserable that Thor was terrified when he heard it. He couldn't help but pray devoutly. Ah, great goddess Hylia, it must be your light shining in this world. This is why my life and destiny can be saved. Original Thor. The original Thor looked at everyone blankly. What's wrong with this me? Everyone smiled bitterly, and Midona said sullenly, the Thor here believes in goddess Hylia. The original Thor was shocked. What the hell? How can a god believe in God? Didn't my dad beat him? Tony coughed. As far as I know, he was beaten. But the more he was beaten, the more devout he became. You know, faith is something that can't be explained, right? Thor said dissatisfiedly, you guys? We are all bathing in the glory of goddess Hylia. Don't you know how to be grateful? He suddenly thought of another crooked idea, and Thor's eyes lit up. By the way, Link, aren't you going to follow me in another world to that original timeline? I want to go too. The original Thor frowned and said in a muffled voice, what are you going to do? To see my Asgardian people who are so miserable that they make a living by fishing? Thor said seriously, I'm going to your place, of course, to spread the glory of goddess Hylia to you. The original Thor covered his face. No need. Thor prayed devoutly again. Great goddess Hylia, please forgive these ignorant lambs. I will enlighten them well. Midona also prayed devoutly. Great goddess Hylia, please don't forgive this Thor. Send down a big watermelon to knock Thor unconscious. Okay. Pym adjusted the parameters. It's time for the original Avengers to leave. The original Tony smiled and said to Tony, don't worry about life after marriage. Don't believe that marriage is the grave of love. For me and Pepper, marriage is a new beginning of love. And I have a photo of Morgan here. Do you want to see it? Tony covered his eyes jokingly. Don't let me see it. This behavior is as bad as spoilers. You really convince me. I can't wait to propose to Pepper right away and dump the High Priest Sovereign by the way. The original Tony was puzzled. High Priest Sovereign? The original Raccoon Rocket opened his eyes wide and couldn't help but put up a thumbs up. Tony Stark, I admire you. The original Rogers also said goodbye to Rogers and old Rogers. Good luck to you. The three Rogers looked at each other. They were silent at the same time. This scene was so embarrassing. Rogers could now understand the situation of the 5 Zeldas. The original Natasha also hugged Natasha and said with a smile, it's great to meet you. It feels like I have a new sister. Natasha also smiled and said, me too. The two Hawkers nodded coolly. This was considered a farewell. The original Thor looked at Frigga and Loki and couldn't help feeling bitter. He knew that after this farewell, he would never see them again. The original Thor said in a hoarse voice, Loki, you better be honest. Although I hate you, I still hope you can live well. My brother, I will remember you forever. Loki couldn't help but said in a hoarse voice, good brother. He suddenly smiled. Brother, original Thor, why don't you stay? Accompany me and my mother. Let this bastard, Thor, go to your world. Thor was furious and said, Loki. Loki smiled cunningly. Don't you want to go to another world and spread the glory of the goddess Hylia? The original Thor watched the two brothers quarreling with a smile, then looked at Frigga and said, Mother. But he didn't know what to say. But it was Frigga who said softly, Thor, you have suffered a lot over the years. I can see that. Take care of yourself. Life in Asgard is long, and all the pain and sorrow are just illusions. You will meet many happy things and kind people in the future. Don't be discouraged about life. Eat more vegetables. Don't be a otaku. The original Thor burst into tears. Okay, I promise you, I will delete that damn Total War when I go back. Zelda also said goodbye to Link, but they didn't have so many emotions. Because Link went there and came back. Zelda smiled and took Link's hand. Protect yourself, don't try too hard. Also, Navi, Midona, and Fang, you have to help me take care of Link. Don't let him eat anything messy. Here Vision weakly interjected, for example, me. Navi said seriously, leave it to me, I'm a guardian elf. Midona also said excitedly, I can't wait to fight Thanos again. Peppa was on Zelda's shoulder and said goodbye to Link obediently. Brave man. Go early and come back early. Even if you are away for only 2 days, Peppa will miss you. Link smiled slightly. Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Spider-Man asked Link, please take good care of Vision. A flash of light. Link, Vision and the original Avengers left. There is another time and space waiting for Link's redemption. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 521, Tearing Nebula Apart with Hands. Vision snaps his fingers. Part 3. Link entered the time tunnel. In this ever-changing space, Navi crawled into Link's clothes. Midona also hugged Link's head tightly, afraid that she would fall behind and enter a strange world. With a whoosh, they returned to the real world. The original real world without Link's interference. Thanos snapped his fingers and killed half of the population. The society on Earth collapsed. The frustrated Avengers used almost all their energy to maintain the normal operation of human society. The original Tony smiled and said, Link, this is our world. Because he knew the relationship between Link and Tony, the original Tony also had a great liking for Link. I don't know if it's an illusion. Anyway, Link feels that this Marvel world is darker than the Marvel world he has been living in. It's as if someone has severely pulled the saturation. The whole is grey. Even Link's hair looks a little dull. Ant-Man breathed a sigh of relief. We are back. Although that world is wonderful and there are not so many tragedies. But I always feel that it is not suitable for me. The original Thor thought to himself, actually, I would rather stay there. Dr. Hulk said happily, you will return safely. That's great. Wait, why are there 2 more people? Dr. Hulk looked at Link and Vision. Vision covered his mouth with his 2 little hands, looked at Dr. Hulk in surprise, and exclaimed, it's Dr. Hulk. This is so cool. Hulk smiled in confusion and scratched the back of his head. Thank you for the compliment, but who are you? Dr. Hulk was alert in his heart. Because the time experiment is like disassembling a precision machine. Whether there are too many screws or too few screws, it is a serious problem. He cast a puzzled look at the original Tony and the original Rogers. The original Tony shrugged. Oh, them. The boy is Link, and the girl is Vision. Vision. We brought them from another world, and they want to come here to have a look. Dr. Hulk was a little annoyed. What? You actually brought people back from the past? The original Tony shrugged again. It's not random. They have important roles. And don't be mean to Link. Link is my best friend. At this point, the original Avengers all laughed. But Nebula was unusually silent. You are back safely too. The original Tony nodded. Yes. You are back safely too. Great. Are you okay? Nebula nodded woodenly. I am fine. Everyone pretended nothing happened. Link and Vision walked down the platform leisurely, looking around curiously. Vision was a little shy, because he came to a new environment, and regardless of his previous fear of Link, he pulled Link's wrist. Midona crawled out of Link's hair and said maliciously, aren't you worried that Link will bite you? Vision shuddered in fear. Instead, Dr. Hulk screamed again. Oh my god. You brought a 3rd person. The original Natasha comforted Dr. Hulk. Please, can you not be so surprised? You are a man with green skin. Since the original Avengers knew about Nebula, they pretended to know nothing and did not tell Nebula in detail. The original Rogers said, we found 6 Infinity Stones. Then he opened the box, and 5 Infinity Stones lay inside, shining and beautiful. Dr. Hulk broke out in a cold sweat. Can't you put the Infinity Stones properly? They will explode. The original Hawkeye smiled and said, "It doesn't matter, they are just infinity stones." They went to Link's universe timeline, and their personalities became a little carefree. Dr. Hulk took a closer look and said, "Oh, is there one mind gem missing?" The original Tony glanced at Nebula and said, "Just install these 5 first." Dr. Hulk was confused, but the original Avengers who returned were all relaxed, even excited. This also disturbed Dr. Hulk, making him less restrained. So he muttered a few words, took careless, and took the box to the laboratory to try to install the Infinity Gems. At this moment, Thanos was on his way to this time and space. Dr. Hulk installed the 5 Infinity Gems on the Infinity Gauntlet made by the original Tony. But there is still a problem. That is the Infinity Gauntlet to snap his fingers. Dr. Hulk said. But he had already decided that he should snap his fingers himself, so he would wait until the Infinity Gauntlet was completed. Vision said timidly, "Of course it's me." Dr. Hulk frowned and said, "You little kid, you ran over here to play. Go play with Scott's daughter." The original Natasha smiled and said, "Of course I have to give it to her, otherwise how can I get all 6 Infinity Stones?" Dr. Hulk was stunned and suddenly heard the sound of fighting. Soon Hawkeye and Rocket, with murderous looks on their faces, turned back. They held Nebula's head in their hands. At Nebula's broken neck, wires were exposed, sparks and heat dissipation were bubbling. Nebula's face maintained a slightly stunned expression. Obviously, because of the sudden attack, Nebula did not react before he died. Oh my god. Have your brains changed after traveling through time? What do you mean by dismantling Nebula? Are you crazy? Dr. Hulk came over in a hurry, grabbed Nebula's head, and looked around. This girl is a robot. I should be able to reinstall a body for her. After all, Tony has so many battle suits. The original Rogers then told the truth. Banner, don't fiddle with this guy. Thanos is coming with his army, and will travel through time soon. Let's act quickly. Dr. Hulk was confused. Huh. So everyone told Dr. Hulk about their experiences. They spoke in a mess, but Dr. Hulk was worthy of being a doctor, and he was very good at summarizing and generalizing information. He soon understood what it meant. He looked at Link and Vision in surprise. Is this girl Vision? And that Link is our partner in another world. Link smiled and nodded. Midona and Naveen chattered. The Hulk in your world is so smart. The Hulk in our world is stupid and has a bad temper. Vision stretched out his white and tender hand and put on the Infinity Gauntlet. Suddenly, he felt 5 powerful forces filling her body, and Vision couldn't help but show a little pain on his face. They hurried outside and waited anxiously. Vision bent his body and tried hard to snap his fingers, but he failed after several attempts. At this moment, the sky shattered. Huge space battleships rushed out, and lasers and artillery fire instantly destroyed the Avengers base. Thanos is coming. Link stared at the sky, and Midona yawned. Come on. Beat this purple fat guy again. Welcome to subscribe, and vote to support genuine works. Chapter 522, Holy Dragon Knight. 4th update. Vision's face was puffed up and red, which clearly showed that she was trying very hard. But she couldn't release her fingers to snap. Link said helplessly, "I'll help you." Link's hand covered Vision's arm, and his gentle light power was injected into it. As mentioned before, Link's light power is not a power used for fighting. The light power is always a very powerful force, and fighting and destruction are only subsidiary functions of the light power. This bright and warm power gave Vision the illusion that his body is glowing from within. Just like bacon drying in the warm sun, Vision suddenly thought of food and was shocked. The desire to survive was aroused, and she pinched her fingers directly and saw the middle finger and thumb slip. Everyone held their breath. In the end, there was no sound. Vision's face suddenly froze, and she smiled awkwardly. I suddenly remembered that I can't snap my fingers. Bang! The original Avengers almost fell to the ground with their butts. Why are you so unreliable, little girl? Link also covered his face helplessly. Navi told Vision, please, all you need to do is mobilize the power of the Infinity Stones to bring the disappeared people back. It doesn't matter whether you snap your fingers or not. If you really think there is no sense of ceremony, just slap you in the face. Vision smiled awkwardly. Yes. The original Rogers laughed dryly. Let Vision practice slowly here. His eyes were on the approaching army of Thanos. The original Rogers said in a deep voice. We are ready to fight. Link also flapped his wings and flew over. Dr. Hulk exclaimed. He can fly. He has wings. The original Avengers said in unison. Calm down. Thanos just walked down the spaceship with great domineering. Suddenly, he heard his subordinates report. Boss, we didn't hurt anyone. Thanos almost fell down. He was a little annoyed and said, what are you doing? So much artillery fire is enough to destroy a primitive planet. Led by Rogers, the original Avengers rushed down one after another. Thor roared. Thanos. Thanos said calmly, so you guys have already hidden like rats. Come on, go and destroy them. Boom. The army and spaceships were dispatched immediately. It was a dark mass. Thanos brought the most terrifying army in the world, which was enough to accompany Thanos to sweep across the universe. The original Avengers were just a few people, looking tragic and desperate. Ebony Maw smiled faintly. They are so brave, but what can they bring? General Deadblade sneered. The spaceships in the sky alone are enough to crush them. At this time, a dragon roar came from the sky. I saw a huge red dragon hovering in the air, roaring angrily, and the sound echoed throughout the earth. The fiery red flames on its body almost set the sky on fire. The light brought by all undyed Thanos' spaceship are mirrored. Hulk exclaimed again. He has a dragon. His dragon can fly. Because of the experience just now, Dr. Hulk made himself calm. As a result, the companions around him also exclaimed, dragon. Dr. Hulk wondered, so you didn't know Link had a dragon? The original Tony said depressedly, I have only been with my best friend for less than half an hour. Thanos looked at the dragon in the sky in horror. He had never seen such a beautiful, handsome, and huge creature, and he couldn't help but be stunned. But at the same time, the calculation of justice in his heart also started. How many resources does this creature consume in a year? It's a waste. In this way, my plan is really great. Thanos fell into self-sacrifice that others could not understand. In the sky, Link was holding the Dragon Soul Greatsword, which was extended to 30 meters long. Riding on the top of Fang Ya's head, he rushed into the army of spaceships with all his strength, and was invincible. Wherever he passed, large areas of fire and destruction burned the sky. Fang Ya had just woken up, and was in high spirits. It was perfect for a big fight. She bared her teeth and claws, wantonly destroying the surrounding spaceships and whales, to satisfy her desire for destruction. Anyway, Link allowed it. Fang can do whatever he wants. So Fang played to his heart's content. Link was not idle either, wielding the Dragon Soul Greatsword, and sweeping it across. No matter whether it was a spaceship or a giant whale, it could not withstand the flames and sharpness. The Dragon Soul Greatsword was 30 meters long, and Link's sword energy extended to more than 1,000 meters. It was extremely exaggerated when wielded. The scene of him riding a dragon and fighting in the sky was like being in a sacred battlefield. It gave people an unimaginable thrilling feeling. One person is an invincible army. Thanos couldn't help but exclaimed, what kind of person is fighting? He was ready to rush into the sky to compete with this handsome and unusually sacred dragon rider. But the original Tony, the original Rogers, the original Thor, and Dr. Hulk stood in front of him. Thanos looked at the huge losses coming from the sky, which made him feel humiliated. So Thanos said in a deep voice, you are ungrateful, stupid, and paranoid. You are guilty, and don't know how to judge yourself. I withdraw my sympathy for you. Not only will I kill half of the people in the world, I will also destroy this world and completely restart it. The original Tony laughed and said, it's just like what the I said. Thanos is a self-righteous lunatic. Dr. Hulk punched together. Everyone. Fight again after 5 years. Hulk and I will not be a drag again. The original Thor said in a deep voice, I don't mind killing Thanos again. The original Rogers shouted, go. Bang. Thanos fought with the 4 Avengers with a double-edged sword. Thor, Iron Man, and Rogers were very excited because they had seen the peaceful scene on Link's timeline, as if they had also been redeemed by Link. And Dr. Hulk, for 5 years, has been holding his breath. That is, in the plot of Avengers 3, he didn't accomplish anything. The 4 Avengers are in their best condition at this time, and even the original Thor feels that his body has become much lighter. In this way, the combat ability has increased dramatically. The four people rushed up and almost overwhelmed Thanos. General Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight wanted to rush to help, but Natasha, Ant-Man and others also joined the battlefield. A melee broke out, and Vision was still trying to control the Infinity Gauntlet. Hurry up, hurry up. Vision was anxious. At this time, the power finally surged. The Infinity Gauntlet was activated. Before Vision had time to laugh, he found that his body was shrinking rapidly. With a flash of light, she turned into a yellow gem and laid on the back of the Infinity Gauntlet. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 523, The Final Battle. 5th update. Rocket saw Vision suddenly turned into a gem and embedded in the Infinity Gauntlet. He immediately shouted, "Oh no." Thanos also vaguely felt some powerful energy bursting out, which made his heart tighten. He also saw the scene of Vision and the Infinity Gauntlet. He immediately shouted, "Grab the Infinity Gauntlet for me." Hawkeye hurried over and snatched the Infinity Gauntlet on the ground. Then Black Dwarf pounced. Hawkeye said coldly, "You want to snatch the gauntlet from me? Do you know how many people I have killed over the years?" Black Dwarf asked very honestly, "How many?" Hawkeye said lightly, "More than 400 villains." No mistake. Black Dwarf was disdainful laughter hearing this. "Only more than 400 people? You dare to brag?" Hawkeye, huh? Black Dwarf punched with a fierce fist wind, almost blowing Hawkeye down. Hawkeye's eyes were focused, looking for Black Dwarf's flaw in his mind. "Yes, fast speed, strong strength. Your flaw is in the wrist." Hawkeye's samurai sword swung out a trajectory, and he lowered his body to stab Black Dwarf's wrist. He was very skilled in this technique of breaking hands and breaking moves in Japan. As a result, bang, the samurai sword stabbed Black Dwarf's wrist and broke. Hawkeye was dumbfounded. Black Dwarf was even more disdainful. Heh, human weapons. He punched Hawkeye again and knocked him away. Hawkeye blocked his chest with both hands, and his wrist was very painful. He hurriedly threw the broken sword aside. He said angrily, "Fatty, I tell you, what I'm best at is not the knife, but the bow and arrow. Don't get me wrong." Black Dwarf attacked violently, and he killed him, and at the same time he was merciless. "You are hiding your cowardice." Hawkeye said angrily, "It seems that I can't prove myself if I don't chop you off." Ant-Man quickly enlarged his body, laughed arrogantly, stepped on people, and bullied the weak ones on the side. General Corvus Glaive could not stand it any longer and decided to deal with Ant-Man, but was stopped by Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon shouted, "I learned your weakness from several masters." General Corvus Glaive said coldly, "My weakness is that I never have good intentions towards cute creatures." He stabbed with a set of spear skills, and Rocket quickly ran away. Behind him, Rod fired a volley of bullets at General Corvus Glaive. General Corvus Glaive almost showed off his skills by rotating the tip of the gun and blocking General Rod's bullets one by one. "This is my strength." Rocket shouted, "Your wife was shot to death." General Corvus Glaive was so scared that his hands trembled and his weapon almost fell. Looking back, he saw that Proxima Midnight was still fighting happily with Natasha. He turned around and said angrily, "You dare to play tricks on me?" But how could Rocket not take advantage of such a good opportunity? A rocket was fired, and General Corvus Glaive could not dodge it. He kicked the shell to the side with a kick, and the explosion wave exploded. General Corvus Glaive rushed towards Rocket with great momentum. Rocket said again, "Your wife was shocked by the airwave of the bomb and was stabbed to death by Natasha." General Corvus was startled again. When he turned around, he saw Proxima Midnight running after Natasha with a grin, like a perverted woman. He turned back again in anger. "How dare you lie to me twice? Do you know what the price is for angering our 5 Tiger Generals of Thanos?" Rocket dodged General Corvus's attack and asked, "5 Tiger Generals? But there are only 4 of you? Where did the remaining guy go? Did he have his teeth extracted at the veterinarian?" General Corvus was also stunned. "Oh, right. Why are there only 4 of us 5 Tiger Generals?" He couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Rocket shouted. Your wife is dead. General Corvus said grimly. Is it over? I'm not going to kill you. Then he heard a scream. General Corvus' heart almost stopped beating when he heard this familiar voice. When he turned around, he found that Proxima Midnight was really stabbed to death by Natasha this time. She was hunched over, looking at him with a bitter face and blood at the corner of her mouth. New bang. Rocket fired the second cannon and turned back in style. It exploded. Boo. Rocket sneered. Ha, the real raccoon never looks back to see the explosion. Rod swept the enemies on the ground. The firepower in the sky was attracted by Link. Link chopped melons and vegetables, crisscrossing the sky, invincible. It was like playing mowing the lawn. No need for others to worry about it. The situation was very good. Rod looked at the battlefield of the 4 giants of the Avengers. 4 against 1. How come they all won? Rod thought so, looked back, and was stunned. Because the 4 giants of the Avengers were being beaten up by Thanos. Thor chopped down with an axe and shouted, everyone, try harder. There are 4 of us. Roger's round shield was broken into crescent-shaped pieces. He gritted his teeth, and with blood all over his mouth, he resisted Thanos' attack. I tried my best. Tony also complained loudly. Tactics. Tactics. Everyone, cooperate a little. Dr. Hulk roared. Thanos slashed, kicked, dodged, and punched. The 4 Avengers were knocked away one after another, lying on the ground twisting. Tony said blankly, this Thanos is so fierce. Thanos roared, you can't stop fate. Rhodes fired a cannon to knock Thanos away. He said anxiously, everyone, stand up quickly. Hawkeye ran around the battlefield, following Black Dwarf. He took off the arrow on his back. Because of the previous disrespect, Black Dwarf's vigilance against Hawkeye was greatly reduced. Hawkeye was only concerned with running away, which also deepened Black Dwarf's contempt. This gave Hawkeye the best opportunity. With a backhanded arrow, he pierced the Black Dwarf's eye. Swish. Another arrow pierced the other eye of the Black Dwarf. Hawkeye said coolly, for a killer, the most deadly attack is only 1 or 2. At this time, Natasha shouted, Barton, be careful of Thanos. Hawkeye immediately felt the hurricane coming from behind him, and suddenly bent over and rolled to avoid it. Thanos rushed over and said coldly, hand over your Infinity Gauntlet. Hawkeye was about to say forget it. Suddenly, he found that the surrounding stones moved and covered his legs. In the distance, Ebony Maw cast a spell, but Hawkeye was trapped in the moving pile of stones. Thanos roared, then I will take it back myself. Hawkeye gritted his teeth and threw the Infinity Gauntlet. Ebony Maw smiled, and when he was about to catch the Infinity Gauntlet with a spell, a spark rope wrapped around his neck. That's how I was almost killed by you. Hawkeye widened his little eyes. Thanos also looked back. A large area of light appeared at the edge of the battlefield. Wakanda, Asgard, the Magic Temple, and all those disappeared heroes, all appeared. Bang. Thanos' jaw hurt, and he was knocked away on the spot. Corolla landed with a glow all over her body. Why do I feel like I always miss important battles? Corolla was a little strange. Tony was helped up by Pepper. Pepper smiled and said, I'm here. How long are you going to lie down? Black Panther shouted, Wakanda. Valkyrie shouted, Asgard. Strange said sullenly, people in the Magic Temple, get ready. Get ready to fight. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 524 Doctor Strange. This is not the same ending as I saw. The war broke out. Tony looked at Pepper in surprise, and above his head, a spirited little spider flew by, joining the battle with vigor. Looking at those faces that he hadn't seen for 5 years, Tony's tired body was suddenly full of energy again. Tony smiled at Pepper. What are you doing here? Pepper said, fighting is not just a man's thing. Boom. Scarlet Witch floated in the air, releasing a large amount of scarlet power from both hands. The surrounding Chitauri were twisted and broken, and died under her power. Although 5 years have passed, the memories of Scarlet Witch and others still only stay in 5 years ago. For her, the second tragic death of her lover Vision happened just a few minutes ago. Hatred made her power increase uncontrollably. Little Spider quickly snatched the Infinity Gauntlet in the air and shouted at Tony, Mr. Stark. Long time no see. For me, we just haven't seen each other for a few minutes. but you've aged a lot. No, I don't mean to mock you. Anyway, little Spider was very excited and ran around holding the Infinity Gauntlet. Thanos' army targeted him and bombarded him. Behind Spider-Man was bursting artillery fire and bombardment. He rushed left and right, trying to dodge. What are you doing? Ugh. This laser is a bit like the one in the interstellar battleship. Spider-Man dodged, but a large amount of ammunition blocked all his escape routes. He was trapped in the center. It's over. Who? Spider-Man shrank his body while holding the Infinity Gauntlet. But he did not die, nor did he feel pain. When he looked up, he saw the Scarlet Power, which was forcibly covering him and blocking the explosion. Scarlet Witch said coldly, "What are you still standing there for?" Thanos punched Corolla away and quickly rushed over and shouted, "Give me the Infinity Gauntlet." Corolla flew back quickly with a black eye and also punched Thanos away. Captain Marvel shouted, "Be serious when you fight me." Ebony Maw looked at the flames of war and said, "Damn it. You will be cruelly punished." Strange said coldly, "Punishment? What about yours? Just compensating for the loss of the Avengers base is enough for you to work for a lifetime." The two wizards fought in the air and stood still on the ground, but they gestured with their hands, and various spells and seals flew out, which was both beautiful and dangerous. If other people's battles were a bloody fight of punches and kicks, then the battle between Doctor Strange and Ebony Maw was more like a turn-based card drawing game. Both sides constantly used various magics to counter moves, but Strange soon fell behind. He had fought with Ebony Maw once before, and he couldn't beat him, even though he had the Time Stone. Now that the Time Stone is gone, he is even inferior in strength. Ebony Maw said coldly, "You wasted too much of my time. You will know how terrible the price of doing so will be." Strange was in even more danger, and he was at a loss, because he found that no matter how powerful his spells were, Ebony Maw could always come up with a more powerful spell to counter. Strange was always suppressed by Ebony Maw. At this moment, a soft voice suddenly came to his ear, "Accumulate strength and strike back, Master Ancient One." Strange was startled. He was about to turn around to look for the long dead sage, but the voice of Ancient One came again. "Focus on the battle. Magic is really against your calm heart. Do as I say." Strange took a deep breath and stabilized his mind. The voice of Ancient One rang in his ears. "Ebony Maw's spells may be more powerful than yours, but fighting is not as simple as comparing the strength of magic. As long as it is used properly, a fork can also stab a warrior in full armor to death. Look for a flaw." "Got it." Strange's mind moved, and a spark circle appeared immediately, gathering Ebony Maw's attacking moves. He stepped forward with all his strength, his magic cape flapping like wings. Ebony Maw lifted the surface of the earth directly, pressing it towards Strange like a rolling wheel. But Strange immediately used space magic to pass through. He released the spark circle again. Ebony Maw said disdainfully, "Your moves are starting to repeat. Are you close to complete failure?" And Strange shouted, "Take a good look at the gift I gave you." A large amount of hot impact surged out of the spark circle, igniting the surrounding ruins and steel. A pure fire energy rushed out and completely covered Ebony Maw's body. The defensive spell that Ebony Maw cast in a hurry had no effect at all. Ebony Maw screamed in horror. "You opened the portal from the surface of the sun to here." Before he could finish his words, his scream turned into a heart-wrenching scream. He was burned to ashes by the high temperature on the surface of the sun. Strange hurriedly closed the spark circle and panted, "My magic power may not be as good as yours, but I can use the more powerful power of nature to destroy you." He turned his head hurriedly. "Master Ancient One?" But Ancient One seemed to be an illusion created by Strange in crisis. He disappeared without a trace. Spider-Man shouted blankly, "Who should I give this Infinity Gauntlet to?" At this moment, Link rode on Fang and rushed down, shouting, "Give it to me." Spider-Man was shocked. "Who are you? Why are you riding on a dragon?" Rogers tore open a Chitauri and shouted, "Give me the Infinity Gauntlet." Because Link's power was too strong, and he looked too domineering riding a dragon. Spider-Man subconsciously thought that Link was not a good person, so he threw the Infinity Gauntlet to Rogers. And why did Rogers want the Infinity Gauntlet? Because the battle had already started in all directions, and there was fighting everywhere. Although the resurrected people brought a lot of fresh troops, their companions were still constantly injured and killed. These people had just been resurrected and didn't even know the situation very well. They rushed into the battle of life and death, and some people died soon. They survived death and then fell into death again. Rogers was determined to snap his fingers with the Infinity Gauntlet, destroy Thanos' army and end this battle once and for all. But when he saw Spider-Man rashly throwing the Infinity Gauntlet over, he panicked on the spot. He shouted, "No!" Because the arrogant Thanos had defeated Corolla and pounced on him like teleporting, intercepting the Infinity Gauntlet from the air. Thanos put on the glove calmly. Rogers and Spider-Man rushed over desperately. "Give me," Thanos shouted. "Judgment is coming." Strange held his head in distress and shouted, "Wait. This is not the same ending as I saw." Welcome to Vote and Subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 525. Thanos, don't you like snapping your fingers? Go ahead. Huh. Link took a breath, and even he was a little panicked at this moment. Thanos actually got the Infinity Gauntlet. He wanted to fight Thanos earlier, but yeah was addicted to the aerial mowing game. He wanted to continue playing for a while, so he delayed for some time, and this period of time caused a very fatal result. When Thanos put on the gauntlet, a powerful force burst out. Everyone stopped fighting and looked at Thanos with horror and despair. At this moment, Thanos was the center of the battlefield. Link suddenly stretched out his hands. "Stop." But Thanos dodged in an instant, and he looked at Link grimly. Link hurriedly shouted, "Wanda." Scarlet Witch certainly didn't know who Link was. But when Link called her name, she already knew what to do. The Scarlet power immediately spread out, locking the Infinity Gauntlet, making Thanos' hand unable to close. Link also rushed over quickly, and the sword light swung away quickly. But Thanos smiled contemptuously. The power of the Reality Stone was released, and Thanos easily broke free of the Scarlet power. Then the power of the Power Stone exploded, knocking Hulk and Tony away again. Spider-Man said in horror, "I was wrong. I was wrong." Everyone was horrified, and Link rushed over. Midona covered her face. "It's over. It's over." Thanos shouted again, "New world." Click. Snapped his fingers. Everyone couldn't help but close their eyes. Thanos opened his arms, intoxicated by the completion of his great cause. He thought he was an unprecedented savior, just like God. And he was indeed like that, with the Infinity Gauntlet with 6 gems. His power was close to God. But he soon heard the sound of burning flames, and the terrified voices of Ant-Man and Spider-Man. "Am I dead? There is so much dust on my body. Am I dead? Thanos opened his eyes in confusion, and found that the Avengers were also looking at him in confusion. Both sides were in a hazy and awkward state. Thanos snapped his fingers again. Click. And then hurriedly observed everyone. Rogers shook his head with a strange expression. "We and this world are still alive." Thanos was furious. "What a crappy glove. A fake product. Who made it? Stand up." Tony spit out blood, but he also shouted angrily, "I made it. You can't fight, because you are not capable enough. Why are you blaming me?" Thor and Corolla looked at each other. "The glove is broken." The flames of revenge rose in the eyes of the Avengers. "Go. The glove is broken. Let's kill Thanos together." Except for a small number of people who stayed to continue to deal with the fight of Thanos' army, the Avengers planned to beat Thanos, who fell into the water with a common hatred. Thanos was also a little panicked. He roared, "Even without the glove, I'm invincible." Boom. He roared. The Infinity Gauntlet released colorful light, which shook the people who rushed over. Thanos was startled and looked at the Infinity Gauntlet in confusion. This kind of power. The Infinity Gauntlet can be used, but why can't it destroy the world? He tried to snap his fingers again, but a girl screamed, "No." Thanos' eyes twitched. "There is a wall that prevents me from controlling the Infinity Gauntlet to carry out large-scale destruction." Tony and others were also at a loss, and they couldn't keep up with the rhythm. Suddenly, Midona in the sky shouted, "It is Vision's will." Vision's will is preventing Thanos from using large-scale killing moves. That's right, it was Vision's will that prevented Thanos from making an effective snap. Vision is just one of the 6 Infinity Stones, and her role is very small. She can't stop Thanos from using the Infinity Gauntlet to do evil things, and she can't even resist Thanos from using the power of the Mind Stone. because she will be restricted by the Infinity Gauntlet. But Vision's role is also very critical. If you want to use the Infinity Gauntlet to destroy the world, or kill half or all of the life in the universe, it requires the 6 Infinity Stones to release their energy at full power. If any of the stones are not there, or the energy is not fully activated, Thanos cannot destroy the world. Therefore, Vision's tiny will to resist can play a very important role. Ha! Link roared and slashed down with a sword, carrying the momentum of a falling dragon. The power of this sword light can even split a mountain. Ah! Thanos punched with the Infinity Gauntlet. The gauntlet and the sword light collided, releasing a large amount of fluctuations. Except for Link and Thanos, the rest of the spectators were blown away by the airwave. The sky collapsed, and the earth trembled. Nori felt a vibration on Link's body and immediately said, "Be careful, Link." Although Thanos cannot use the Infinity Gauntlet to destroy the world at once, but Thanos wearing the full gem Infinity Gauntlet is very terrifying. Don't be careless. I will be your second pair of eyes. Keep an eye on him. Thanos stared at Link in the air. Who are you? How can there be such a strong man like you on Earth? Thanos answered with a dragon roar from Yaya. Fang felt that it was because of her playfulness that Thanos took the opportunity to get the Infinity Gauntlet in order to avoid Link's scolding. Although Link had never scolded her, Fang worked particularly hard. Fang flew down and blew a big breath of dragon's breath. Thanos waved his hands to disperse and punched with the power of the power gem, rushing away. Link instantly activated bullet time to dodge. Scarlet Witch was horrified and said, "He can move at high speed like my brother." Pepper asked Tony in surprise, "Who is this long-haired boy riding a dragon? He is so strong. Why would he help us?" Tony joked, "His name is Link, and he is my best friend. I just found out about this not long ago." Strange was confused. "Link, I have predicted the ending tens of millions of times, but I have never seen him." Everyone watched the battle between Link and Thanos. The strength of both of them is extraordinary, and Thanos has an Infinity Gauntlet with all gems, and his power is so terrible that it exceeds the existence of life. The waving of his hands is a large-scale terrifying pressure, which makes people feel terrified. And this blonde long-haired boy, riding a dragon, holding a 30-meter long sword in his hand. He actually faced such a Thanos, and was not at a disadvantage. He was looking down from above, and kept attacking back and forth. His momentum was getting stronger and stronger. There was actually a ripple of emotion in everyone's heart, because in this grand battle, there was actually a hint of sacredness. Thanos was also shocked and roared, "Boy, who are you?" Link answered loudly, "In the name of the goddess Hylia, I came from another world to take your life." The annoyed voice of Vision also came out from the Infinity Gauntlet. "His name is Link. He is super powerful. You can't beat Thanos. Don't you like snapping your fingers? Go ahead and do it." Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.